Hello, hello, who do we have here now? Hello, Olga. We got Olga on. Let's see. We got three on. Might be a little bit of a slow day. Cam is in the middle of a power outage right now. So he's hoping that the power will kick back on. He can jump in with us. I don't know if it was a planned or one of their planned ones or if they just had an outage, but he lost power about a half an hour ago, so it's going to be me for now. I don't know if I can handle it, but we'll see. I got a couple interviews I'm going to share with you with Colonel Parker. One was by Ted Koppel, and another one, I forget who it was. It's about 9 minutes worth of interviews. One you could tell wasn't too long before he passed away. But it's kind of interesting to hear him make excuses for some of the things that people have questioned over time. But in the meantime, we got nine on of us. Hey, Dylan, nothing ain't bringing me down today. My faith in rock and roll has been restored biblical. You might have to explain that one, Dylan. Hey, Susan. So for those of you who just popping in, hopefully Cam's going to be able to get in, but soon. He about an hour ago, half an hour ago, he lost power, and I don't know. He didn't say whether it was a planned one or a something that happened. When he loses power, we try to keep the communication down to a minimum so he doesn't lose the power on his phone. But hey, Priscilla, oh, thanks for joining us today. This should be an interesting conversation. I'm going to definitely miss Cam because Cam's always got some great input. Um, but I tell you, we had a power outage here last week, and it's like at the worst time. Now I have a little power supply that could keep my necessities going, but that only lasts so long on a battery backup. So we're pricing out getting a generator, but we don't really lose power that much. The greatest band to come out of England since the Beatles made their comeback last night and did the entire set without any bust up. Who was that? The Dave Clark Five? I don't know who you're talking about, Dylan. Tell me. What? Yeah, Susan wants to know. Oasis? I'm not familiar with them too much. I've heard of them. I'm sure I've heard a lot of their stuff, but who was their name some of their members, Dylan? Hey, Tracy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll probably repeat this a few times, but um, Cam's hopefully going to be able to pop in. He's waiting for his power to cut back on. He has that problem out there a lot. He's missed quite a few shows over several months. Gallagher brothers. That Noel, is that one of them? I've got a comment from him about Elvis that I'm going to post if that's him. I'll have to check them out. I'm not too. I think the Beatles were slightly louder and more aggressive. I'm sure I've heard their stuff, but I'm just not. I'm not that familiar with them. But I'll check them out. Okay, yeah, Noel Gallagher, Liam and Noel Gallagher, Bonehead, Andy Bell, Bonehead. Is that their last names, Bonehead, or is that what you're calling them? I'm not. Yeah, I'll have to check them out. But I've heard of Noel Gallagher because I've seen him I've actually got like I said, I got a. He's doing an interview and he talks about Elvis being the king and all that. It's a pretty good one. I need to post that on one of my shorts. So all right, let me say hello to everybody. Then I'm going to share that interview. Then I've got what I'm going to do is we're going to continue with the book we're doing, but I'm going to show some highlights too from the other book that I want to. It goes back to his childhood, so I got some interesting highlights I want to share. And anybody that wants to call in, since I'm here alone without Cam, Anybody wants to call in at any time, call in. Let's chat with me. You know, but also too, if you just want to chat, obviously we got a great discussion. We got a few more weeks of these two books, and then I'm gonna we'll probably be off the Colonel train until the new book comes out. I want to try to touch base with some others. They are 90s music, okay? Yep, Noel is a great singer and entertainer. He also compliments his guitar player. Yeah, he said something about not being a songwriter, but then he kind of like shoos that off as if, so what, you know? We can name all kinds of people that were famous and big and weren't songwriters. So I'm tired of that old crap. All right, let's see. Let me share this video. It's interview. I spliced them together. There's two interviews. One's with Ted Koppel from Nightline, and one's another interview. And I find it here. And where's the book watch videos? And here we go. Open up. Add to scene.
Himself a legend, a showbiz pro.
Oh, let's bring it over here. Let me bring it down here. Add to scene. All right, so I should have had that ready, shouldn't I? All right, guys. Interesting. You know, it's also to pay attention to this too, because you know, a lot of people say that, you know, they don't detect a Dutch accent, but there's certain words that he comes out with that you can have a little bit of a hint of it. I don't hear putty tat like we talked about the other day, but anyways. I watched long ago was fun. Sorry I didn't get to say goodbye. Battery ran out on my iPad. Yeah, that, I know about that. Hey, Brent. Welcome aboard. Okay, I'm going to show these two interviews. It's about... Okay, let me find that comment because... Okay, hide. All right, so it's about 10 minutes long, two interviews with Parker. And then we're going to get into some interesting information on his childhood. And so I'm going to highlight a little bit of his childhood from that one book. And then we'll get back into the book that's been really a topic of conversation with us all. So here we go. Like I said, anybody call in any time when we start the book discussion until hopefully Cam will be able to pop in when his power gets back on. So, all right.
Himself a legend, a showbiz pro with an old-time carny man's flair for bringing them into the tent. Colonel Tom Parker saw Elvis Presley for what he could be, and as his personal manager, launched him on the royal road to stardom. To mark the Elvis Presley anniversary, Colonel Parker is playing host in the Elvis Suite,
I'm with you, Susan,
the rooms where Presley stayed when he was playing the Las Vegas Hilton, then the International Hotel. The suite has been filled with Presley memorabilia for just this week. At age 78, Colonel Parker generally declines interviews, but he agreed to talk to us earlier today from Las Vegas. It is generally conceded, Colonel Parker, and to those who don't know it, let's tell them right now that Elvis's success was part Elvis, part Colonel Parker. Which part was yours? Because that was the less visible part.
I think mine was the least part.
But explain it to me. What was it? What did you do for him to help bring him to the public's attention?
I did all the promotion, the outdoor advertising, and he did the show on the stage, and the fans made it possible. You can promote all you want to, but if the people don't want to buy a ticket, it doesn't help. So I did my part, Elvis did his show, and we were lucky.
Yeah, this interview is going to irritate you because some of the things he says in here are just, in my humble opinion, BS.
Great talent. We had a great show and a lot of fun.
Now, let me ask you something. In this day and age, in the 1980s, it would be unthinkable that a star of Elvis Presley's magnitude would not end up on the Johnny Carson show, on the Merv Griffin show, on half the talk shows around the country. You deliberately kept him back a little bit from that kind of exposure. Why did you do that?
Well, I like to correct you. I kept him back, but I didn't do it deliberately. I found out some of my
Steve.
friends, they had artists. They put them on all the shows, talk shows for free, and they had a hard time getting a job after that.
So you thought it was just a bad, that it was bad promotion, even though it got someone very well known, that it ultimately didn't work out for the best?
Well, I felt it was good for us not to go on, although all these fellas were good friends of mine. But when you go on these shows, most of the time they book people when they're big stars.
Hey, C-Cat.
So they don't hurt them too much. But we were starting out, and it wouldn't have helped us any, which has proven because we did all right without him.
Yeah, you did terrific without him. You've got critics, you know that. You have them. Even Elvis has critics. Your critics say that you held him back, that he could have been much more of an actor, for example, than he ultimately, was given a chance to be.
Well,
because you put him in those kind of, beach bikini, jailhouse rock type movies.
Well, if whoever said that is fine. They can say what they want to. If I was them, if they know so much, they ought to go into management business.
Well, you tell me about it. I mean, was he perfectly content? I mean, was it a matter of his knowing his own level, knowing his own limitations, or was it just
Well, I didn't know what he knew all of it, but he knew that he could do whatever he wanted to, and nobody told Elvis Presley what to do, because he was a very strong person, and we had a great relationship, but I took care of mine, he took care of his, and he didn't let anybody tell him what to do.
Could he have been a really great actor? Could he have become a fine dramatic actor, do you think? Did he have that kind of ability?
You know, Ted, you're right, but one time at one studio, we had a great producer, the late Jerry Walt. You remember him?
Sure do.
And he came to us with a script. And he told Elvis that if we did this picture, he would be practically assured of an Academy Award. But they could not pay us the money that we wanted because the script was so expensive. So I told him that we usually stay home during the Academy Award, and he paid us our money, and if he bought us the Oscar, I give him his money back, and I never saw him again.
Okay, now what about the songs? I am told
It's so freaking easy to sit here and make those excuses when Elvis isn't around to put in his side of the story.
that he could sit there and listen to a stack of demos, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 would go by him, and he'd say, "That's the one, I want that one," and that he had kind of an unerring instinct for what was good and right for him musically.
Yeah. Ted, as long as I was with Elvis Presley, I never was involved with what songs he was going to record. Very seldom I was ever in the studio. He picked his own songs with the songwriters, whatever they were, and he never asked me, should I do this or that? It was up to him. He liked it that way. The only song that I was able to have him record, because I thought it was good for him, was Are You Lonesome Tonight? That's the only one.
Step back for a moment and do what I know so many people who are watching tonight would like you to do, and that
He's not mentioning the movie songs, because Elvis didn't pick those. The majority, at least 90% of them.
that is explain, if you can, the Elvis phenomenon. Not just while he was alive, but here we are 10 years after his death, and if anything, he's a bigger star than he ever was.
I think it's wonderful, the following, the people supporting him, and what else can you say? I've never heard of anything like this, but I'm very happy with it, and I know if Elvis is anyway looking down, I think he's laughing pretty good with what's going on. I don't think I can explain it, Ted. I've been 10 years since Elvis passed away. When he passed away, I was on tour. I had to stay behind, close out all the tours. But I've been for 10 years doing nothing except consulting work and working on keeping Elvis's name in the limelight with the fans because they're devoted. I've talked to over 1,000 in the last 4 days here. I did interviews, and it's unexplainable. They say anybody else could have done it, perhaps so, but I happened to be the one.
You know, this is 1987, 10 years after Elvis passed. Isn't it 3 years later when he got sued and lost the ability to be able to promote Elvis anymore?
I was with him. He did his part, I did mine, and there is no answer for that.
When all is said and done now, was he happy with his career? Was he satisfied with his career, or was there any emptiness left?
Well, I don't know, but I know one thing. When I told us to slow down, he said, I want to play more dates. So I booked more dates. I said, well, I don't think you should. And he said, well, that's what I want to do. And I quit for a while, and he was very unhappy, so we started all over again.
Colonel Parker, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's our report for tonight.
You know, this is before all the books start coming out about the Colonel. And people started really, you know, there's so much stuff out there. I think for those of you who've been staying with us through all this Colonel train ride, you know, I've gone back and forth on a lot of things. But last week, it was really, even with Cam. Cam was just really ticked by the end of the book chat. Just with what we got to that point in the curious book, Dickerson's book. I can't even speak right now. This interview pisses me off.
Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Now here's the this next one's only about 3 minutes long, I think. If I did it right, yeah. Look how old he looked there, man. Not long before he died.
Elvis Presley commemorative stamp at the Las Vegas Hilton, Colonel Tom Parker defended his relationship with Elvis. He gave this rare television interview exclusively to Inside Edition.
Scripts. I never read script. Elvis read script. The boys brought him script. William Morris. I had nothing to do with him picking whatever picture he wanted to make.
Colonel, I've spoken to some people in the so-called Memphis Mafia, and they told me that one of the reasons Elvis got so heavily involved in drugs was because he was frustrated with his career, a career path that you led him on. What do you think of that?
Well, those that do that,
Oz.
they did it because they got paid for it. Books, they paid them. We have quite a few members of Elvis' staff that don't feel that way. For the time Elvis died, 16 years ago, till today, I've turned down more books for big money. Because my story, they will not print. They said, no, we want the dirt. I said, well, I'm not a dirt farmer. That's the phoniest story ever came out. There was never
I know it's
no
hard to
plan
hear,
for
but
him to do Star Born. He told me to make the contract stiff enough where they would turn it down because he did not want to do it.
Another accusation is that you gave the Hilton a cushy deal. They didn't pay very much money for Elvis to entertain here to take care of some of your gambling debts.
My gambling had never anything to do with Elvis. And at rate, Elvis got more money during the period we played there than any artist in town. Liberace was getting $50,000. He was getting
that's a good one, Tracy. Yeah.
a week.
The Colonel was also criticized for making bad business deals for Elvis and taking half of his profits.
I know of 4 or 5 big stars that have a deal like that. But my deal was not 50% of the profit. My deal was 50% of work I created where he did not have to perform. And we had a partnership. But on the motion pictures, the hotel, and the music business, 25%, never no more. All I know is
That's
I
not
sleep
true.
very good at night. And Elvis and I were friends. I had a whole staff that could go to Europe, but he didn't want to go because he didn't want to play outdoors. And if you don't play outdoors, you can't make it.
What about the recent portrayals of you accusing you of misrepresenting Elvis and exploiting him?
If you give me an honest answer, do you think I exploded Elvis as much as he being exploded today?
I tell you, it's just, you could just, there was a few pauses in there. He had to stop and think about what he had to say. I liked the questions they asked him about, the drugs, and I liked the questions about the gambling. You know, it's interesting. I saw, there's this one channel. It says that this one YouTube channel I was watching, and he makes the bold claim that Colonel Parker was never a gambler. That he was used by the hotel to sit there and play with just chips to get people to come around the table and gamble. Has anybody ever heard that story before? Truthfully, has anybody heard that story before? He says there's no proof that he was a gambler whatsoever. But did we not just see a video recently? Or no, I've got a video I'm going to be showing here coming up. It's him sitting at the slot machines, putting in money after money after money. Now, I made the statement. I made a comment in during when he was speaking that he played the slots. There's videos of he says, "Well, slot machines aren't gambling. That's just petty stuff." Oh, hold on a second. Who do we have? Hello. Hold on a second, Patricia. I mean, yeah, Priscilla. I'm sorry. Okay, now if I can figure out how to get this. All right. You might have to call back because I had the phone. Damn. Try right back, Priscilla. Please. I'm sorry. I had this thing. Too many things open. Try that back again, Priscilla. But I had a relative or a friend, not a relative, friend, but a friend we knew. I was born in Nevada. And a friend of mine, all he gambled in was the slot machines. And he went rich and he went poor and he went rich and he wound up dying poor with nothing, all through just dumping all his money into slot machines. So don't tell me that slot machines are not gambling. I'm hoping that too, Susan. I really think that's why I'm still holding reservation. Here we go. Why does this do this? Okay, there we go. Are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Sorry about that. Can everybody hear her? Give me a yes if you can hear her. So, well, thanks, Priscilla. What do you think?
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and don't forget the donkey, because that's what that man rode into town on.
Oh, is that a?
Oh my.
Yeah.
God. Really, like, who? Even the difference between the interview, the first interview and the second interview, he was more evasive in the first interview. Obviously, he'd gotten brave and realised he could say what he feckin' wanted for the second interview because nobody was there to refute it. The rubbish that leaves that man, 25%. Are you laughing? Like,
okay. Hold on a second,
really?
Priscilla. I got a group call here. How did I get a group call? I'm such an idiot with this thing. Is that, hey, send CCAT. Are you in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to join in, or did you get called?
I got called.
Okay. Here, just go ahead and hang up then.
Sure, no problem.
Unless you want to join, yeah, you could join the conversation. Join it. Stay here if you want. That's fine. I gotta figure out how not to get group chats. I don't know if it's me or the other end, but anyway, go ahead, Priscilla.
So, look, the reality is, everybody knows, anybody here on this channel that has heard me talk to you or on Steve's channel, I have a name for that man, and it isn't in any reference for military position. He is the Lion Dutchman.
Yeah.
Now, really, I understand that he was instrumental in the launching of Elvis's career.
Yeah,
I do not
absolutely.
dispute that.
Absolutely.
I dispute that everything else he did after that's a lie.
Yeah. And there's BS about how Elvis was the only one that approved the scripts, and Elvis was the only one that made the decision about movie songs, and Elvis was
many of the mafia have told us that Elvis always chose the music himself, and what he recorded, like.
Well,
he didn't choose the music for those films.
Well, in the studio recordings, yeah, but as far as the movies were concerned,
no. And it was that deal was Parker's deal. Elvis didn't have a choice to pick what movie he did.
Not regret.
Because they were all the same. Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I'm a child of those movies, and I absolutely loved them.
Yeah, I do
I
too. I
absolutely
mean,
love them.
there's only really one that I'm not real fond of, but I still watch them. I mean, you cannot criticize Elvis acting in any of those movies. I
Yeah,
can't.
no, not really. And I think that, okay, did he become a little less enthusiastic? Possibly.
Sure.
But I think that no matter what Elvis did, he did the best he could.
Yeah.
And he did the best of his abilities.
Right.
I think that's a testament has been paid to that by the fact that here we are 50 years later, still talking about that man. And I'm going to tell you that I think those movies had a lot to do with, continuing the legacy. And I know I've said this before, because I'm a child of the 80s. I mean, I was 5 when Elvis died.
Yeah.
I still remember. But, that elongated his career, because the 80s and the 90s, we used to have Saturday movies and,
Right.
back when you only had 2 channels.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so it kept Elvis to the forefront.
Well, that's what I grew
um,
up on. I grew up with Elvis movies.
Yep. And I think that they, look, do I believe that Elvis had the ability to be a dramatic actor? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Is that because I love Elvis? No. It's because that speaks for itself when you see him on stage. When you see him on the screen, you can see that he has those skills.
Well, he had all the different attributes. He had the comedy. He was dramatic, and and he was romantic. He was all of it. I mean, he had everything, And when I think about some of the movies,
the serious one, that he was handsome.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I'm very comfortable in my skin, but I could tell you, I think he's the best man that ever walked the face of this earth. Good looking, I just believe that. As much as I wish I was in second place, I think I fall way down at the bottom of the list. But he was. I've been lucky enough to feel the electricity that when he enters the room, like when I saw him in the Hilton, you feel it's such a true fact that you feel that electricity. It's unbelievable.
I don't know what I was reading, but they said that if your back was to him when he came into the room, you knew he was there.
Yeah, the Memphis Boys said that too. They said that they had their backs to when Elvis walked into the American Sound Studio the first time, they had their backs to the wall, and they knew Elvis was coming, but they knew when he was in that room just by the presence of what they felt.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that Elvis couldn't make. That was part of who he was. That's the charisma that he had. Yeah. Whether he was, a world famous musician or not, this notion that Elvis wouldn't go and play in Europe because he didn't want to play outdoors. Come here a minute now. Pull the other one. It plays Jingle Bells. That man, I swear to Christ, you couldn't believe him if he told you the day of the week.
Yeah.
He was a born liar, and he manipulated Elvis throughout his career for his own benefit.
Yeah, we're gonna I
don't doubt that for a minute.
Some of the things I'm going to go through today with that other book it shows his early start in that too. It was nature for him. It was natural for him. He didn't learn it. It was just in his bones. And some people are just born that way, and Parker was born that way, and the fact that he was able to get rid of that accent the way he did. But, these 2 interviews, I don't know if anybody noticed, but there were a couple words that came out. You could sense it. But he still, especially when he's getting older, but he was we keep calling him a reptile, and I think he was a reptile. And
I wouldn't insult a reptile. That's what I wouldn't do.
No, I wouldn't either. I agree. So
that
great points.
Didn't have a moral bone in his body, and how he can continue. And the claim he made in that interview that he has done nothing but to continue Elvis's legacy. Because did any of those events that he went to, or any of those 1,000 people, did they get it free?
Yeah, no.
No, they had to pay for it, and they had to pay royally, as we still are even now. And the point, I just think I can't actually think rationally about that man.
Yeah,
mean, truly,
I've defended him on a lot of things, and I still do defend him like you do on how he made Elvis the superstar he was, or he is, still to this day is, and but somewhere along the line it was beyond Parker, and somewhere along the line his vices interrupted what could have been. And that's that gambling and that's just my opinion. But the last couple of weeks, my tilt towards not to the hateful stuff is starting to go a little bit to that side, and it's just I'm still holding my judgment on a lot of things until Peter Gronick's book comes out, because I think 30 years of research by an author that I have full confidence in, I think is going to hopefully resolve a lot of things, and I think that's why it's been good.
I don't think that anything will ever change in my opinion of that man. Honestly, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it will change my opinion, but I think it'll help me understand some of the things that happen. And I think, why the hell would he do that? Well, I'm sure Gronick's going to go over what I'm going to go over a little bit today, more in depth. It's just his childhood. From the beginning, it turned, he just grew into that beast. He did it to Eddy Arnold. He ripped him off, Hank Snow, all of those guys, Anyway.
He was a self-serving.
Oh, yeah. It was, I think in one aspect he did. I don't think.
Egotistical.
I don't think Parker had any ability to love somebody. I think
the only thing Parker loved was money.
Yeah, that's it. And damn be if anything gets in the way of it. And that story he said about Elvis coming to him and saying, book a tour, because, and Parker would say, no, bullshit. Parker never said no. I mean, Parker kept booking him down the East Coast there. Through Virginia, in Norfolk, and all through that area, he kept booking them in those places.
No, the point is, right, I understand that Elvis may have said keep booking, because we all know that, in the latter years, Elvis was afraid he'd be forgotten.
Yeah.
I just hope wherever he is now that he knows he's not forgotten.
Well, I agree with that. I agree that he said booking, but I don't agree with what Parker's saying, that he didn't think he should.
No.
You kidding? Parker's not going to turn down a dime. There was money to be made off those tours. I mean, Elvis came home one time from a tour and said it was a short 4 or 5 date tour, and said to Charlie, look how much money we made off this tour. It was just like, hey, I need money. I'm broke. All I can do is book a tour, and I've got the money. So that's why I think deep down, that's why Elvis never worried about money. Vernon did, but Elvis always knew that he could go out and book a tour anywhere in the country, and he would have the money back.
Yeah. And I also think that Elvis, being the kind of human being he was, and that Lion Dutchman being the manipulator he was, I think that he used an unfounded sense of loyalty that Elvis had to him to the full.
Yeah.
And manipulated Vernon and Gladys at the time to get what he wanted initially. And I genuinely now, and I know I don't often involve myself in anything that brings negativity around Elvis. Genuinely, Rick, I think that it's our job as Elvis fans to continue.
Absolutely.
But I think that if Gladys had lived, she'd have kicked that man to the curb.
Well, Elvis would have listened to her in a heartbeat. I honestly believe. And I think at the beginning, Elvis was just, Gladys wasn't around long enough to really see what he did.
I think she knew though. No. I tell you that the day or the,
no,
the
what I mean is after that with the movies and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. The story I heard, or the that photo shoot on the steps of Graceland after Gladys died, where Parker brought all that press and made him sit outside and brought him out like you could only describe a show pony. At that man's lowest ebb, that was the day I knew I disliked him intensely. I won't say the word hate, but I disliked him intensely.
Yeah.
And nothing that man could ever do from that day forward, no matter how he continually verbalized his love and wish to promote Elvis. I will never believe it. I will never believe it.
No.
I'm just sorry that someone in their infinite wisdom didn't get the chance to tell him in real life that he was.
Yeah, Vernon didn't have the balls to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
You know,
But Vernon didn't have the balls to stand up to Elvis.
No.
And right, okay, I understand. We're not all the same.
Yeah.
We're not, there have been times in my life where I should have behaved differently.
Yeah.
And I just think, oh my God, I can't stand him. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I see things towards that man that I don't think there's another human on the planet that I feel Trump, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No.
I better go. This isn't going to end well now. But I think it's ridiculous.
Thank you.
How
Great comments, man. Great.
No, great rant. I hope Cam comes back and you have some safety.
Yeah, I know. He just messaged me. Said I told him earlier. I said, don't use your phone because you'll run out of battery if you don't get power on. But he just messaged me and he said, what did he say? He said, can't connect to group calls on mobile data. Power is still out, but as far as I know, they investigating the cause. See, he only works off of internet. He doesn't have mobile data. So the only way he can connect is through the internet, which he doesn't have because he has no power for his Wi-Fi. So he's pissed. I know he's pissed. I could hear him now.
I'm sure he is. And I mean, it's terrible to think that in this day and age that...
Yeah.
It's not a third world country.
He's in an area that just they lose power, but they do a lot of purpose. They do it on purpose a lot too, and it just he's I so wish we talked about it last week. I just so wish we can just pack him up, bring. He says, "Well, give me my ticket. I'm on my way." Cam, I love that guy, man. He's part of this, and. But hopefully everything will be back before we end today, or at least, with the other two events out of our trifecta for the Elvis Day. So.
Yeah. The problem is, lads, if you don't stop producing the really good stuff that you're putting out there, I'm not going to get that done. I'm gonna get fired, or my mother is going to excommunicate me from the family because I'm going, oh my God, there's a really good thing I want to watch. There's a really good thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is I'm trying to stay up late at night to catch up, and then I'm half dead at work the following day.
No, we're having a blast. We're enjoying it, and we have a great community. Our subs, I think we got the best subs out there. We just, the conversations we have, where it's so non-drama. It's just. I live for it. I can't wait to do it I can't wait till Saturday rolls around or Tuesday midnight or any of the stuff we do. Cam and I recorded a great Inside the Studio yesterday. You guys are going to love it if you're able, whenever you see it. So we got
the other thing too, Rick, is, the reason I stick around is exactly that. It's a non-drama.
Yeah.
It's all about Elvis.
Yeah, I got all that drama out of the system. I got it all cleaned out. I'd done it, and after a few conversations with a couple of people that just kind of opened my eyes and said, "You just got to let it go," and I did, and I feel so much better. And look where we're at now.
But not even that, it's not controversial Elvis stuff.
No,
it's not,
no.
Sick with or it's genuine people who have a genuine love for a man. And his music and his ability. Yeah. And I think,
and when we do get off on a subject like Parker or even Priscilla, there's no
I think it's
arguments.
A respectful conversation.
Yeah, and everybody's got an opinion, and I've always said that since day one. I will never delete anybody's comment for a difference of opinion. The only people I ever delete are the ones that are nasty and hateful. That's it. I respect, and I tell you what, I can't tell you, since we started this book chat, how many things I have had to change that I've always believed. I've always believed certain, and other people's opinions. They say things like, "Oh, you know what? and when they ask questions, they're great questions. They're not. There's nothing dumb. I never believe there's a stupid question, anyways. But there's no
Yeah.
obvious questions that everybody gives thought-provoking thoughts and questions, and that's why I did so well in school, because I loved doing that. I was in the debate team, and I loved having conversations in class. I would hang after class and talk to the teachers. I still talk to my sixth grade teacher to this day, and it's like I thrive on it. And this avenue has given me that with people all over the freaking world, and I can't believe that.
And the product that you're producing is
But-
one that I want to watch. I want
Thank
to be
you.
involved in.
Thank you.
I want to.
No, I appreciate that, and I've seen 800 new subscribers in the last 28 days. And
Wow.
yeah, we're gonna hit 25,000 here soon. We've changed
Hey,
things
hey,
up.
hey.
I know. I'm pumped. So we're just gonna
Yeah.
keep it going, and and we'll add things, and so. But well, Priscilla, I'll let you go. I appreciate it. I always enjoy my conversations with you. You've got some great thoughts, and
I don't think I'm ever as eloquent as a lot of the other commenters, but I can assure you, I'm probably waiting for enthusiasm.
do you think me and Cam are eloquent? I mean, come on.
Well, sometimes I do. Sometimes I think, the reality is I've never claimed to be anything I'm not. I love Elvis.
Yeah,
And I do
that's
everything
it.
I can to promote it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that, I think that it's such an intriguing story
Oh.
from start
Oh
to
my
finish.
God! Look who just popped in. You smart ass.
Hey, Cam! He couldn't resist me.
Yeah, Priscilla's online.
Sorry I'm late, guys. We had a overhead power line overload, so it tripped
Oh.
the line.
That
So,
reminds me of that song that I wish Elvis had sang. The Wichita Lineman.
So hopefully we're back and
Yeah.
we're here to stay. So apologies for being late, but I'm here.
Hey, no apologies, bud. Everybody understands it. No,
What I must.
Oh man, you missed I played the interviews with Parker. I don't know. I don't know if you want to catch it on the replay, or if anybody's interested in seeing it, they haven't got a chance to see it. We got all the time. I've got till 2:45 today before we have to get ready for the inside the studio. So all I know, Cam, is when you see this interview, it's going to set you off. It's
Okay.
it's two interviews with Parker. So
It worked for me.
yeah, it worked for her, man. She called right in. So all right.
The Lion Dutchman.
Yeah, the Lion Dutchman. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Tracy.
Ciao, guys.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Priscilla.
Bye, Cam. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
So, okay, real quick for everybody. I've learned that if you're going to use WhatsApp, call in from your personal, from you, not from the group chat. Because when you do that, you get everybody in the group chat. I learned that last week when Dylan called in. I didn't realize that's what happened. So when you're in WhatsApp, be in your own thread, and then call from there. And then that way we don't call everybody. I'm learning stuff every week with this. So, Tracy, when I hit 100,000 subscribers, trust me, we will have one hell of a celebration. I don't know how I will be able to cook buffalo wings and send them to everybody. No, but we will have some nice giveaways. But right now we're close to 25,000, and I'm just psyched how much we've grown in the last 2 months. It just blows me away. So, and Cam's got a lot to do with that, and I started back in to do my little short videos, and so we're just going to keep going. And to those of you who joined us the other day in the Discord trial, I think we worked out a lot of kinks, and I got a clear understanding how it works. So I'm going to come up with a plan of starting to do some video watches with some different things. I got some really cool stuff out there to do. So anyway, That was a good call from Priscilla. So if anybody else wants to join in, I'm going to go ahead and I'll be flying to Atlanta for those buffalo wings. I make some great buffalo wings. I got a great sauce. Haven't made them in a while, but man, I got a special sauce that will that will that will set your giblets going. We lost. Oh, you just got your camera off. Okay, so
Yeah.
anyway, I'm in WhatsApp, but not sure how to call just you. Well, oh no, you go to my name. I'm sorry, I need to correct that. Go to just my name in the WhatsApp. Don't go to the group one. Go to my name and hit the call button from there. So if you want to try that, Dylan, try it. But go to my name in your list. Don't hit the Elvis-A-Z one. Hit the my name, Rick Lowe. That's me. And just hit the call button, and it'll come straight to me. That way, no one else is involved in the group chat.
Or otherwise known as Rick Louis.
Rick Louis, who was it that said that? Oh, that was that stupid scam call that called me. And he called me Rick Louis. I want to let you know that this call is being pre-recorded.
Yeah, it's being pre-recorded.
Pre-recorded, yeah. Can you play it back so I can hear it? Stupid shit. So anyway, it was 9 minutes worth of video, so I don't know if you want to catch up on it a little bit later, but I'll take a poll. They have to call your number only, Rick. Yes. Just call my number only. So in your call list, whoever you're connected with in WhatsApp, you just pick my name and dial it. Now, if you don't have my name in the list, let me know and I'll send you, I guess I can send you a link. Let me see if I have you in my... Oh, look who we have calling. I think he figured it out. Okay. Hello, Dylan.
Hello.
You get it figured out?
Yep.
Awesome.
What I did was I went into the group chat where someone tagged your name, and then I went into that, and it came with just your number.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So, what do you think? So tell me your 2 cents worth about the Colonel.
All right. I've always said that when it comes to promoting, there's nothing better. But management is a bit too far of a stretch to say he's a manager, because managers seem to contribute to the music. He didn't really contribute to the music. He contributed to the selling of the music, but not really to the... He didn't give him any ideas, really.
Yeah. Well, Parker had no clue about music.
But,
all he, like you said, he was a promoter, and he was a great promoter. I'll give him that. Even when he had to promote, look, this is what I think about as far as the movies. All right, they weren't the greatest scripts for Elvis. Elvis could have done, like we said. We all agree with that.
Yep.
But Parker made him the #1 actor, highest paid actor during that time of those movies.
Yep.
So he did his job on promoting those movies and getting it out there. And the other thing that I think made Elvis the top actor, highest paid actor during those movies, is the fact that it was the only way for people to see him, to get their fix on Elvis, because there were no concerts.
And that's when, and that's why I say to people who moan about the movies, you can moan about them, all you like, but for those 7 years that he was away from the stage, that's the only way that people could see him.
Yeah, see, I grew up, like I said, when I grew up, I only knew Elvis as really as an actor, a singing actor, those movies, because the earliest I remember Elvis was in '62 when I went to see Follow That Dream.
Yep.
So all those years, every time a movie came out, and back in those days, you go to the theater, you would see 3 movies at one time, two B-rated, two B movies, and then you see the main feature. So you'd be at the theater for 5 or 6 hours. And sometimes they would do 2 Elvis ones, the last one and this one. And then when it's off, not at the theaters anymore, you don't get to see it anymore until it finally pops on TV a year later. And then you see it that one time during that season. So your fix of Elvis was just, when's the next one going to come out? Well, of course, he was popping out 3 movies a year. So everybody
Uh,
got their fix, and I knew that. And then the first time I knew him, I seen video, but we didn't have the internet and all that. So the only time I ever got to see anything of Elvis from the '50s was if they did a clip or some kind of special on TV talking about him, and they'd show clips from Sullivan and stuff like that. You didn't get all these concert videos and all like we do now. So the first time I came to realize, and I had the same reaction I think most people did, was when I sat there in the living room with my dad and my whole family, and Elvis opened up with, "If you're looking for trouble."
yeah.
My dad, I still remember, and I was 10 years old. I remember standing up and looking at my dad. My dad just grinned. That's all it took. And I stood up the whole show. I didn't even sit back down. And that whole show, I said, the only time I ever did anything was when the commercials came on, and I ran to, if I had to pee, I went to pee real quick. I don't care how long I had to hold it. Or I'd go get me something to drink or whatever. But I was back in that room, and by the end of that show, I had forgotten he was an actor.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
all about the music, and from that point forward, it was like, and of course, he had the couple more movies that came out, and then when I heard, then the story was coming out about him being in Vegas and all that, and I asked my dad, "Can we go? Can we go?" And my dad said, "Not until I go see the show first to make sure you could go." Because
Yeah.
didn't know what it was going to be like for a 10-year, 11-year-old kid.
Well, I heard a story that when they were doing Change of Habit, he'd already signed a contract.
Yeah, you're right, FAFO. It did. It took 5 to 6 years to be on TV. Go ahead.
So he knew that when he was doing Change of Habit, he knew that he was getting back on stage, but no one else knew.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true. But
Okay,
that's what I
say
heard.
that one more time.
That when Elvis was doing Change of Habit,
Oh
he'd
yeah.
already signed a contract. That he'd already signed a Vegas contract.
Well, it was. Well, the
Is what I
the
heard,
movie
but I
was
don't
part of
know.
the Vegas contract.
Yeah.
Or was it part of the '68 special contract? It was a part of the Vegas contract, wasn't it?
No, I think it was part of the Vegas one.
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Because the 68 special, as far as I know, at that time was still on the editing floor.
Yeah, well, let's see. The
It
68
was
special-
done. It was done, but it was in post production.
Okay, well, they played that on December 3rd, 1968, and then he did the signature for the International Hotel. But I think you're right. I think that the agreement, that was just a promotion when you see that video of him standing at the construction and signing the contract to open up or be at the International Hotel.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go so freaky bad because I'm 5 hours from. We lived 5 hours from in LA. It's about a 5 hour drive, maybe 6 hours, something like that. And we used to drive out to Apple Valley, which is, if I'm not mistaken, on the way to Palm Springs. My dad used to go out there to go see Roy Rogers Museum and all that, and we had relatives out there. And billboards all up and down that road of Elvis coming to Vegas, Elvis coming to Vegas. And I was just like itching. I wanted to go, and it wasn't until '72 until I finally got to go.
Well, talking of '72, did I tell you that I saw some of the fan footage from that night that he was there?
Yeah, the first night it was all basically VIPs.
Oh yeah, but then when you was there in '72,
Yeah, when I was in '72, what did you ask me?
did I tell you that I saw some footage from either like a balcony shot or something like that?
Yeah, I sat below the balcony. The balcony was not a dinner. Wasn't dinner. Balcony was just. I don't think they served dinner up there. But we were when you walk in the door to come in. Now the place is only 2,200 seats. I mean, no matter where you sat, it was a great seat. Okay, and there was 5 of us, and if my dad said later that if it should have been me and my dad and my mom, he would have paid the maitre d' to get us a little bit closer. But there were 5 of us. My dad wasn't going to cough up, back then. He said, "I'm not paying for them to go up there," and so. But anyway, it does. But still, we sat. If you walk in the back, when you walk into the room, you come down. There's a center stairway, a center ramp going down, and I think it like had a ramp and a step and a ramp and a step. But there was a row when you first walk in. There was a row of tables for dinner, and then there was a second row of tables. Well, we sat in the third row down of tables, and then in front of us were all the booths. So we were sitting a little bit higher. And so wherever you sat, nobody, if somebody even stood up in front of you, they never blocked you. It was a slope all the way down. And I remember sitting there, and I could see, of course, the Inspirations did their little bit and all that. And of course, the comedian came out, so-called comedian, he came out and did his spiel for 10 minutes or whatever. And then all of a sudden the lights go down, and the waitresses, they give all the waitresses a heads up, and they all come around and make sure if you don't need anything else to drink, because from that point forward they're serving you just drinks when the lights are down. And so they came and made sure all the tables were cleared, and then when they were doing that, you knew they were getting ready to start. That's what my dad said. So anyway, because he's gone to see him in February and knew what was going on. So he and I tell you, as many times I think about this concert, when the lights went down and they started off with us 2001, and he comes from the right, he comes out the right side like he does, you saw, and that's the way it is. And, it's kicked in as, he opened up with That's All Right Mama. And when I'm sitting there and I'm itching, because the music, what's getting happen, because I just got the Madison Square Gardens album, so I know what's going to happen. And all of a sudden he walks out, and you literally feel the hair stand up on your arms from the electricity. And somebody told me you're full of shit. I'm telling you right now. And then I let out a little frickin' squeal. And my dad looked at me like, what the hell was that? But he walked out, and the first thing I really noticed about him was his nose. His nose, because he has a very distinctive nose. And when he walked out, the light shined right on his face first, and then it expanded. And I saw that nose, and he wore that blue suit, and I was just I didn't take my eyes off of him that whole show.
No, yeah. Well, talking of MSG, he wore that blue suit that he wore at MSG that night. That's the suit he wore that night.
Oh, really?
That blue. That blue suit. But I remember you telling me that he wore a macrame belt, which was interesting because
he never wore
a macrame belt with that suit before.
Yeah, he wore a macrame belt, and he had a cape with a silverback. And it was one of the I don't think he used the cape much longer after that.
I think he dropped it by 73, was it?
Yeah.
He dropped it?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But it was before they put the center walkway out too. They added the walkway out the front. But anyway, I know I go on about the concert, but it's just these are memories, Everybody, when you talk about Elvis and been gone for 50 years, this is the stuff like the birth of my children, and getting married, and those moments right there stand in my mind more than anything else. It's just
you don't forget.
Yeah, and I count my lucky stars that I got the opportunity to see him, because he was a hard ticket to get.
Yep.
And back then you had to stand in line.
Yep. Queue around the block all night.
Yeah. For LA, we got lucky on that one. We walked right into Sears at the time and walked right up. They opened and got to the ticket booth. We only stood for 20 minutes, but I sat in line for a day and a half in December to see Elvis in Atlanta, and that was cold. But people there were Elvis fans. They're the same then. Elvis fans were friendly. They were doing coffee runs and donut runs and all that. It was just nobody was pushing and fighting. Anyway. So, anyways, how'd we got from there now we get to the nasty shit, Parker.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think should have happened?
What's
in
that?
73. I think when that whole firing thing happened, I think that he should have been fired as the musical manager, but kept on as the promoter. Is what I think should have happened, because that way,
Parker wouldn't have settled for that.
Yeah,
I
Parker
think
wouldn't have settled that. I agree, but I'll be honest with you. I think the promotion of Parker was wearing thin with people.
yeah, true.
And
True.
I think the person that was in the hunt or discussions was Jerry Weintraub, who was one of the biggest promoters. He promoted some of his tours, and
Yeah.
and he wanted the management contract of Elvis, and if he had done that, it would have been a world of difference with Elvis. I mean, he would have definitely gone to Europe right away.
I heard that Binder was in talks as well for being manager, but I don't know how true that is. But I heard that he was talking to him about it.
All right, I got to get to this book. We've been an hour, and I want to show some highlights from this one book. And there's some funny shit in it, or just interesting stuff about it. But no, thanks, Dylan. That's some good stuff. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And I finally figured it out. So next time I call in, I'll make sure.
I'm just catching on to it. So at the beginning of each one, I'll make sure I let everybody know, in case nobody knows, that if they're part of my group chat. But it makes it we put it to the group chat. So, all right, man. Hey, Dylan, thanks, man.
Yeah.
You gonna be around for Inside the Studio?
Yep.
Oh, cool. We got some cool stuff. So, all right, buddy. Thanks a lot, man.
Right,
good talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's get to the book. Anybody wants to call in, feel free to. And I better remove Goofy there. So, I got Goofy covering up camp. So, that's Goofy, isn't it?
All right. That's okay. You can leave Goofy there for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said he wants to be part of the group chat this week. He feels left out every week.
Nah, we need to see you, dude. All right.
Oops. Yeah, no, I kind of agree with Dylan in one sense, but Parker was not the kind of guy to share, and we've established that.
He wasn't going to let go of anything. Because no matter what would have happened, if they split it up, Parker would have been all in that guy's grill, man.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been an easy rope to juggle. Something strange I never actually knew. I actually noticed it the other day when I was watching that Jerry Weintraub actually produced the Karate Kid movies. Did you know that?
Say that again. Weintraub what?
He produced the Karate Kid movies.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
So Cat Girl says Jerry Weintraub did not want to manage Elvis. I know there's a video interview with him where he talks about it, but I don't remember how it ended up. That's interesting. He wrote an excellent book. If I stop talking, I gotta make a note of that. I want to get that. Thanks, Cat Girl. That's interesting. I appreciate you letting me know that. He didn't make it the #1 actor. He was a top money maker. Yeah, that's what you're right. I said that wrong. He was the top money maker. I apologize. I got carried away with it. You're right. Huge difference. Elvis wanted to be an actor. Eventually his movies were outdated. No one took Elvis acting seriously. Yeah. No, good point. Thanks. All right. So the book, I'm going to start off a little bit with this one book right here. This is Elvis and the Colonel, written by Dirk Valinda. He actually goes into a little bit of the upbringing of Parker. So I highlighted some stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot of things in there that are just not really that accurate, but there's a lot of stuff he got from interviews with Parker's family. Tom Hewlett. Wow, Tom Hewlett, that Elvis was... Oh, that's correct. Yeah. Thank you. I forget these names, man. I learn. That's what I mean. I learn some stuff. And I'm corrected on stuff, and I don't mind being corrected when it's... the Cat, he was a good actor. He was my best at my serious roles. I think He had some great roles that showed his acting chops all the way through. But Elvis and the Colonel, and so this book was actually recommended through another book I read that goes into his depth. So I'm going to try to get as much through these two books as I can. So let me get rid of the cover. All right, if I can read this shit. Okay, well, I got to go back and get rid of that. There we go. Dickerson cover. Oh, that's the Dickerson cover. Okay. I'm trying to get my slideshow going here. All right, so it starts off with Parker in where he lived the last days. It talks about Palm Springs, a 2-hour drive from L.A., and it lies in the Bear Valley between the San Bernardino National Forest and Joshua. The old man is, I'm going to just skip through some of this. The old man is sitting on his patio. He's wearing a loud Hawaiian shirt, surprise, shorts, and a baseball cap. He is bald and obese, and he slumps in his chair like a half-inflated blimp.
Nice description.
I just love the way this guy describes everything. Nurses in white move in the room behind him. His wife is in a coma. Under normal circumstances, she would be in a hospital. The old man pays $6,000 a month so that she can have intensive care at home. She is the closest thing the old man has to a companion.
Oh no, here we go.
His right, what's that? Just off the topic, anyone think Elvis faked his death?
We were talking about this last night.
Yeah, I saw this video. I gotta send you guys the link. This is the stupidest video I've seen, and I don't know how it fell in my algorithm, but this video is by a guy named Hillbilly Cat, Hillbilly something Cat, whatever. It's just a fairly small channel. I think he's got 250. And I fell into it because he followed us for a little bit, but he left following us because he's a buddy with with my nemesis. So anyway, I'm not going to mention names, but anyways, so I checked out some of his videos, and they're little short videos. They're all AI videos, but he did.
We could do a watch party of all these videos in one party.
Yeah. So he did this live feed yesterday. And after he finally figured out what was going on, about 15 minutes to it, I was roaring. And the video is a part one of resolving the mystery and uncovering the lies that Elvis is actually alive.
Yeah.
And it's all these different. I can't even go. I can't even laugh. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then I fell asleep towards the end of it. You know how when you're watching a video on YouTube, it'll scroll over to the next one. Well, the next one was just as bad. It's some guy sitting there talking about all the mystic, and Elvis is a miracle worker, and he lays his hands upon people and he heals them, and I thought I was literally, I thought I was all in my dream. I'm listening to stuff and I'm half asleep, and I wake up and I look at the screen and it's got all these. Now I know Elvis was into numerology, and which it's interested me too.
Yeah, we go.
Yeah, they say Bob Joyce is Elvis now. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go off too much on him, but it's just he.
I often wondered to myself to say that if Elvis were here, I wonder what he would say about all these crackpot stories that are coming out. I'm sure he would bust a nut.
It says Laurie Beers. You saw it too? Is that you talking? I don't know if she's talking about what I just said. Anyway. So his right shoulder is damaged and he has trouble using his right arm. A few years earlier, he took a fall in an I'm sorry. I hate to laugh at this. A few years earlier, he took a fall in an elevator in the RCA building in Los Angeles. He was unable to get up, and the automatic door kept hitting him over and over again, although as though he were trying to beat him to death. I guess the elevator was an Elvis fan. In 1982, his health had been the subject of an affidavit, and we all know this. This is into the suit. What affidavit read to a New York courtroom? I am 72 years old of age and suffer from a heart condition which would make it very difficult for me to travel to New York City in connection with this action. I spent much of my time in Southern California in order to be near my wife, who is a virtually comatose condition and is under continuous nursing care and a medical supervision. If I'm forced to contest any part of this proceeding in New York, it will be a major hardship for me, and I probably will be unable to attend the proceedings or assist my counsel. At the time, an attempt was being made to separate the old man from a multi-million-dollar empire. Ultimately, the attempt would succeed, and the old man would be left broken and bitter. Now, it's really not good that I'm sitting here laughing at that, but I just picture, I just him falling down and having an elevator practically beat him to death. It's almost like karma. I'm sorry, but after mooching off of Elvis for 10, 12, 13, how long did he mooch off Elvis after he died?
Yeah, something like 13 years or 15 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah. The old man's name is Tom Parker. He was a self-made millionaire, an earthy W.C. Fields figure who had grown up in the carnival, who had little formal education, who had single-handedly changed the face of entertainment. And of course, his creation was Elvis Presley. Jump a little bit to there. Back in the days when they called him a genius, he had it all. Hell, there'd been times when he dropped 75 grand in a night at one of the casinos and thought nothing of it. Now, some of the stories of some of the mafia said they saw him drop $1 million. I don't know
Yeah,
whether that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me.
no, not at all.
Something else the old man didn't ever admit was that there had been a madness around him and Elvis. There had been just too much. It had become impossible to cope. Too much money, too much adoration, too many people always smiling, nodding and agreeing, too many people who wanted something. Some of that I believe, but some of it, what's bad about it, it's a matter of how you handle it. I mean, think about it. We've talked about it with Elvis. I mean, there was an infatuation. There was something about him that, like they say, he walked into a room and not even look at the room. You knew he was there.
They were all starstruck.
Kathleen Parker's poor wife went comatose to block out her husband. Yeah, you know what? That's a good point, Priscilla. His creation, oh my God. They say that he was afraid Streisand would have educated him on the business side of his career and advised him to ditch Parker. I'm sure some people Elvis came in contact with Parker not around advised him to get rid of Parker.
Yeah, we know that. We know that that Bender did that right from the start.
Yeah, Bender told him right off the bat, I'm not doing a Christmas special, and that's and it's like when they were talking about doing the unplugged type set on the stage because he got that idea from watching Elvis jam in the room. And what was it Parker said over my dead body, and then, Elvis was agreeing with Parker, and he walked out and he told Bender, "Fuck him, we'll do what we want." And Bender got into his head about it, and Bender was right.
And
I,
I think ultimately that's why Parker got involved and stopped Binder from ever contacting Elvis again because Parker knew it.
yeah, Cat Girl, I believe it would have been horrible to do the movie with Streisand. It's good he didn't do it. I think he would have done a good job, but I also see your point. I think that it would be. You're right. Today, what they would have done with clips from that movie, because it was a story of an alcohol. You know what? I don't remember. All I know is A Star Is Born Now. You know, he was an alcoholic. Was he an alcoholic in the original Chris Christopherson, or was he a drug addict? I can't remember. I only saw that once. I'm not a fan of Barbara Streisand, though there are some movies I do like of her. But Elvis was more known than Chris Christopherson. Probably would have sold more tickets for the movie. It would have been an interesting thing. But you got a good point there, Cat Girl. It would have been one of those clips, cutting out and Phyllis
Yeah,
Moore.
they would have exploited that today to no end. They would have possibly even said it's semi-autobiographical.
Yeah. But that's kind of that irritates me. Who was it, Trace? Who made the comment that creation? Oh my God! Yeah, out of
Priscilla.
control rock star was. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I thought the one that just came out with with Lady Gaga and I can't think of his name. He's a good actor. Um, Bradley Cooper, is that his name? Brad Cooper.
Yeah,
Am I right?
yeah.
Yeah. It sucks not remembering names. I could quote you all my credit card numbers, but I can't remember a freaking name. All right, so let's go through some more highlights. The old man's chest began to hurt again. He continued to stare at the patch of snow on the mountains, but he stopped thinking and remembering. Instead, he let himself lapse into an unfocused bitterness. It was easier that way. I could picture he's in Palm Springs. I can picture he's just bitter. He's being sued, and that's got to be hitting his ego. And he thinks he's entitled to all that stuff. I don't know. I got a bloody autocorrect. Elvis is loyal to Parker. He was an alcoholic. Yeah. I did not like the Lady Gaga version of A Star Is Born. I thought it was good. It was one of those movies where I watched once and I liked it. I'll never watch it again. It's not like with Tombstone. I'll watch it every time it pops on, or Armageddon, or one of those movies. But A Star Is Born, I thought Lady Gaga did a good job in it. I'm not a fan of hers, as a singer, but I thought she did a good as an actress. But I see what, yeah. On Monday, June 28th, 19. Okay, now we're going to get into his birth and all that. So in 1909, Adam von Kuyk. Sorry, guys. I hope I'm
Fun
not.
guac.
I could really make it sound not nasty. Crossed the cobblestone marketplace to Breda. Adam von Kuyk had come in town to the town hall to register the birth of a boy who had been born 2 days earlier. The two other men were to act as witnesses for the official notification. The child was to be named Andreas Cornelius von Kuyk. Later, the first name, Andreas, would be shortened to the diminutive Dries.
Yeah.
And so a snake is born. A reptile is born. We've named them we've even called them an iguana, haven't we?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Sue, that was misleading to people who don't know the truth. I've had to tell people that it didn't happen, who have seen the movie. That scene made Elvis look terrible. What are we talking about?
That's the scene
Oh,
where
yeah.
he apparently fired Parker.
Off on stage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point, Susan. I believe it's pronounced Calc. Calc. That's what Alana says. Okay, thanks. I wish they'd write these in phonetics. I could pronounce it. It'd probably take a lot more across, but I could get to that. Plus, I'm trying to read it with the print smaller. All right, so I'm just going through highlights. So, like so many children in large families, the infant Dries, I can't picture him as an infant. And I've seen the pictures of him of a young man, and he seems to be in good shape, trim, and not a bad looking guy. I mean, I wouldn't expect him to be doing Chippendales anywhere, but like so many children. Ooh, what an image! I just gave everybody a very bad image of Parker and Chippendales. Oh my God! I'm sorry, people. That's as bad as the dolls singing the other night. Okay, so the infant Dries, particularly during his first 5 years of life, was raised by his three older sisters. Adriana, mostly called, I'll just call her Adriana, I can't even pronounce that, said John, by the family. In particular, acted as a second mother. For her little Dries was an animated doll who could be dressed up and paraded in a baby carriage through Brita's So little Colonel Parker was riding around and all dressed up in a little stroller. My sisters. You could pass him by, but he didn't see anything. Adriana recalls he slept on one side of the loft and the girls at the other. Sometimes he came downstairs still asleep, not noticing anybody. He went to the kitchen to drink a glass of water, and then he went back to bed again. By the time he was 5, young Andreas had grown out of being a plaything for his sisters. He was no longer the little doll who could be taken for rides in the park. He had become independent, almost to the point of secrecy. He would vanish for hours on end to roam Brita's streets and alleys. And therein lies what I said earlier. And you guys tell me what you think. I don't think he learned this. I think this was just a disposition. I think he's a person, and I've known one other person in my life that was this way, that have no empathy. They have no feeling of, they have no emotions, no love, none of that. And I think he was born that way. And his focus was on totally something different. And just based upon what I've read in some of the books, he had very non-amorous marriages. And that's just what I've read. All the versions of A Star is Born were melodramatic soap operas, starting with the first one. I've never seen the one in 37. That's with Judy Garland, isn't it? Cornelius, the corny carny. Cool Hand Luke role. Yeah. Well, I guess there was talk of the Midnight Cowboy role and True Grit and some of the other ones. I don't know. True Grit, he would have. Parker always wanted top billing, no matter what, for Elvis. And movies like True Grit with John Wayne, he wouldn't have got top billing.
No.
Not at that time, because True Grit came out around the early 70s, 71, 72, maybe a little bit earlier than that. And then Rio Bravo, which is a great movie, but that was back in the early 60s, I believe. It would have been the Ricky Nelson role. Now, Ricky Nelson sang one song in that movie, but that's a great movie, Rio Bravo. But, okay, so by the time he was 5, young Anders had grown out of, okay, so we got that part. On the third Sunday in October, the carnival came to Breda. It took over the entire town as its tents and stalls spread through the Castellplein across the marketplace. The Grote Mark. I am butchering these words. Along the Hallstrasse and the... Okay, let's just say it was spread everywhere. Just around the corner... I'm sorry, people. Guys.
Spread everywhere?
I know. It's just... I don't know. The words... They're interesting. I mean, it's an interesting language. It really is. But it's like the to Vlazak, where he... I'll have to get a map out. For a small boy, particularly a secretive, inquisitive one, the fair was an actual flash of noise and color in an otherwise drab and uniform world. As Andreas thank you for using Andreas. Andreas got older, he discovered that the fair was not only fun, but it could also be very profitable.
There we go.
The odd coins, sticks of candy, and free tickets for the rides could be earned by an enterprising boy prepared to fetch, carry, or hold a bit of wood while the showman putting up his booth nailed it into place. He was entrepreneur right from the beginning. He was self-absorbed, a true narcissist. Yeah, you can see it in the early age.
Mm.
You think he may have been on a spectrum? Yep. Janet Gaynor. Oh, okay. I thought. Okay, she was a good actress. The center of attraction at the fair was the Big Top, the main theater tent on the Gestiople that was occupied by the Bauber family. In front of the city hall, the fire eaters, the fat lady, the performing dogs, and the strongman all strutted their stuff. There was also wild. There was also a wild donkey, and if you could stay on it for 5 minutes, you'd win 5 guilders. After a while, the Van Beavers started giving odd jobs to the kid. So now he's this is where he got his carny. Paul Newman did a terrific job of yeah. Elvis did a screen audition for The Rainmaker with Burt Lancaster. Yeah, he didn't get that role, did he? Oh, obviously, duh. Sociopaths don't express empathy, and they're manipulative. Right, dead on. Without a doubt, both Dree's ability to make money on odd jobs and his delight in the bustle of fairs and circuses was a direct legacy from the traveling Ponzi's. I mean, it was. That's the thing that got into his blood right there. His whole life was a carny life.
Yeah, when you look at it like that, you kind of almost want to say, yeah, you can't feel sorry for the guy because
Yeah,
he didn't know any better.
12, 26. Sadly for Dries, the circus that so fired his imagination was only in town for a few days in the year. The rest of the time, he endured the repetitive grind of a hard-working liveryman's son. To compensate for the drudgery, he started a collection of animals. There was a rabbit that lived in a hutch in the stables, and a crow. I can't imagine having a crow for a pet, and a crow that he trained. I see what he's doing. A crow that he trained to sit on his shoulder and to perch on the end of his bed while he slept. He attempted to catch sparrows with small traps hidden in the horse manure. He's very inventive. Later on, he would own a goat that he taught to do tricks, including climbing stairs. He started with goats and he ended up with Elvis.
Yeah.
Interesting. On Sunday afternoons, it was the habit of Adam. Where does this asexual part of his personality fit in? Especially with all those Hollywood starlets and Vegas showgirls. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's mentioned I think it's mentioned in this book, 3 books I've read. It mentions, no. Of course, last week we kind of come up.
Yeah, I have a different theory on that altogether, but yeah, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into that today. We'll get into it some other time. So on Sunday afternoons, it was the habit of Adam von Kuyk, the father, after he had brought his family back from church and had eaten a hearty Sunday lunch, to take himself to the unassuming cafe on a street known as the Bayard. On these days, Drace was left in charge of the stables while his father played cards. Ooh, played cards. Poker. Drace, full of himself and very much in control of the situation, positioned.
Seriously?
Well, that was really weird. I just got kicked off completely off my Google.
Wow.
That was freaky. Drees, full of himself and very much in control of the situation, positioned the children around the stable walls. Quietly, he moved in and out of the big, docile draft horses, untying them, letting them loose. The children felt a thrill of fear mixed with the excitement of a conspiracy. Had Drees gone quite mad? Surely his father would kill him if he knew that Drees was turning the horses loose. But since it would be Drees who got the beating, his brothers and sisters could just sit back and watch the fun. Dries next produced his father's long wagoner's whip. Wow.
Tracy wants me to spill the beans.
Well, let's finish this part of this book, and we'll get into the book because that's where we left off. All right, so you guys kind of get an idea. I'm not going to go over all these things because I want to get back into the other book. But this is really you're seeing the young Parker being developed, and you just wonder some of these things that happened to him as a child, like being dressed up and running around I guess that would happen till he was like 5 years old. That's pretty old to be carted around
Growing up.
in a stroller or a cart.
Mm.
Let's see here. How much more have I got? It's not certain whether Dries actually finished all the grades in elementary school. According to the system, the pupils were separated into groups in the sixth grade. The Achievers, Group 6A, went on to high school, the MULO, and the rest either went into 6B or a preparation for the technical school or quit school altogether. There's no record of what he did with school. His father may have disapproved of Drees' fecklessness, but by the time the boy was in his early teens, he was actually starting to need his son's help. And due to his health, it was failing. He was troubled by swollen feet, and sometimes walking was almost impossible. Later, a doctor diagnosed as rheumatism. And I think I'll stop at that point. We'll continue with that book next week. Um, it starts to talk about his mother and his sisters. Let me get out of this. Uh, all right, so that's that one. Now we're going to get into where we left off last week. So you want to kind of left where we kind of left off last week for those of you who weren't with us. I know Tracy had to leave early last week. I think it was. I believe. Anyway, based upon some of the things that were said and Parker's complete jealousy of anybody that came in close contact with Elvis, especially women, a lot of us came up with the conclusion of go for it, Cam.
I have the theory that Parker was batting for for the other team on the other side of the fence secretly. Uh,
Not that
and
not that there was anything that occurred between him and Presley,
no,
but
no, I think we all know of the situation that uh, of the guy that Elvis met while he was in the army, that supposedly came to do his hair or something. Strangely enough, unfortunately, also a guy from South Africa, and we all know what happened to that poor guy
yeah,
once it became evident in Elvis's mind. So, had Parker tried any of that shenanigans with Elvis, I think Elvis would have beat his ass to the curb. But that's my personal opinion on it. Uh, and when you look at it, it kind of explains why he always had issues with Elvis getting too close to people, him not having any serious intimacy connections with his wives and his family.
yeah.
Uh, this and who was that guy that it was Tom Diskin, right? At the end of it, that had to go and put in all the money into the slot machines, and he kind of
Yeah,
developed that kind of attachment to Tom Diskin
yeah.
too. I think, yeah, I think that
It-
probably
It's just
if
it's
you
just
had,
based upon what we read.
Yeah.
We don't have no proof, or I haven't read anything else. It'll be interesting if it's brought up in. You know, I don't have anything wrong with anybody that is gay or has those tendencies. I mean, my youngest brother was gay.
Yeah.
He was killed about 4 years ago, but he and I had no issues with that.
No.
I could care less. Just don't shove it in my face. And my brother and he came to live with me for a while. It's kind of a funny story. I don't know if I should tell it because it's just like it could be almost embarrassing. But anyway, I'll tell it. So my brother, he was 11 years younger than I, and he came to live with me for a little while. He was having tough times, and he would go out to the clubs with me that I used to go to. I used to go to this country bar called Dodge City, and they used to have live bands there, and I used to go there. Every once in a while, they let me get up there and play with them, but I hung there. It was right down the street, so if I drank too much, which I rarely did, but if I did, I could walk home and come back and get my car the next day. It was like 4 blocks from where I lived. So anyway, he kept saying, "Hey, come into one of my places. Come to one of the places I go to." And I kept looking. I go, "Dude, I wouldn't fit in." He goes, "You think I fit in your place?" And I said, "Well, no." I said, "I know you like music." He said, "I don't like country music." So anyway, I agreed one night. And we went down to town Atlanta. I can't remember the name of the place. What it was is one of those, it was a drag show. Of course, they get up there and it's men, obviously dressed as women, doing Judy Garland and all the different, Barbra Streisand and all the different ones that they do. And I was sitting at the bar, and I was having a few drinks, and I was watching. It was actually kind of entertaining. They were lively, they were friendly. Everybody's friendly. Nobody tried to make a hit on me or anything like that. And they were just friendly. He introduced me to his friends, and everybody knew I was straight because it's just the way I was dressed and acting. So the waitress was coming over. I moved over to a table. The waitress would come over and have a drink, and she was really good looking. So she asked me if she could give me her number, and I said, "Yeah, sure." My brother. I told my brother, I said, "She just gave me her number." I said, "Yeah, I might go out with her." He says, "Well, it would be in my best interest and my survival if I told you right now that it's a guy."
Oh my goodness.
Obviously, I never told her, but thank God he told me because I would have been horrified if I discovered it in a different way. You know, I'm you know I'm not exactly enticed to grab a handful of something. So anyway, that's so we had a good relationship. He was killed by a drunk driver, and but anyway, so that's where we got off on kind of on that story. We kind of left it that way. Olga, I do believe Dickerson did. If you look at the men that Parker had on his team, the lackeys, not very masculine. Diskin always kind of well. You know what? I didn't really know. There's not much interaction. I'll be honest with you. The guy that portrayed him in the movie Elvis, he really wasn't very masculine. But he wasn't feminine. But he was a lackey for Parker. But I don't know. We'll never know. We will never know the truth.
No. No.
But when you see signs like that and you read stuff like this, and whether it's true or not, but we'll find out in other books. That overprotective of being jealous or not wanting women around Elvis, or the guy doing it's crazy. Those situations were so taboo. You're right. You're absolutely right. And there's another guy. There's a guy that I worked with. This was just about a year before Elvis died. I was working at Sears, and this guy I worked with, he was gay, and so he knew I was a big Elvis fan, and he was I was 18 years old working at Sears at the time, and he was like in his mid-30s, and he said, "Oh, I got a friend that was in the Army with Elvis." I said, "Really?" I got all excited about it. And I said, "Man," does he live around here anywhere? Is he, He says, "No, he lives up in North Carolina or somewhere up there." I said, So what does he say? He retells you story. He says, yeah, him and Elvis had an affair. And I looked at him. I said, bullshit. I don't believe that for a minute. You're freaking lying. That guy's, that guy's just, feeding you a bunch of crap. And I didn't believe it. And then I guess after Elvis died, he came to me and he says, I was just bullshitting you. I was furious. Like, you don't tell me shit like that.
Yeah, I remember my uncle. My uncle said something to me the same effect too. I mean, my uncle's gone now, but that's one of the reasons why. Uh, I was young. I didn't understand those kind of things, and I kind of ostracized my uncle for his choice and for his orientation. But I remember my uncle had told me basically the same thing. As a kid, he also said that he thought Elvis was gay, and I tell you, I can understand where you're coming from. When he came out with that, it was like I went totally off the wall. I was like, "Are you crazy? That guy's about as straight can be." He's like, "No, he has a serious idea, and he thinks he read somewhere that Elvis was secretly gay." And I was like, "Oh my
Ah,
God, don't!"
yeah, that's right.
Uh,
I don't believe
and
it.
I never spoke to him for months after that.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I got to do something here. I got to change this over here, move this up here so that it'll work. All right, so we're back into the Dickerson book. And Elvis is when Elvis was shipped off to basic training at Fort Chaffee, Colonel Parker went with him, leading a procession of news reporters and photographers and 100 or so civilian fans. Parker continued to nudge Elvis out before the camera. At one point, he suggested Elvis wear a Western-style string tie with his uniform. No, sir, Elvis responded politely, pointing out that wearing a string tie would get him in trouble. Why didn't the colonel wear the string tie? Parker ignored the suggestion and always the master of misdirection snapped at the photographers to quit taking pictures of each other. I don't get what that's supposed to mean. Elvis wasn't at Fort Chaffee long before he was told he would be assigned to the 2nd Armored Division at Fort Hood, near Killeen, Texas. Parker didn't want to have any more dealings with the Army than he absolutely had to. And Gladys was not too happy about moving to Texas. The move only compounded the grief she felt over her son going in the Army. She had to be beside herself. I mean, the Korean War had just ended. But, that doesn't mean that something else is going to happen. When, I worry about it with my son. We're not involved in anything. And, there was a mission that they did, but he would have been involved in that anyways. But you never know. He's in Hawaii. Hawaii's been attacked before. No one to say it can't get attacked again. So I can appreciate, in somewhat of her feelings. She had all the symptoms of liver disease, but everyone was so absorbed with Elvis's departure, herself included, no one noticed the alarming rate at which her health was slipping away. And it did. You look at the at the beginning, how she was smiling like in Tupelo and all the different places at the beginning, but all of a sudden, it just seemed like, for the last year and a half, you just saw her eyes get darker and she got more bloated and she just never freaking smiled.
Yeah, it's like the life left her.
Yeah, Tracy, let's all be clear. Elvis was very secure in his masculinity. Yeah. And he made no bones about what he preferred.
No.
The colonel followed him to Fort Hood, but then returned to Nashville after he got set straight by a real colonel, and a woman at that. It wasn't like he had nothing to do with his time. He was a busy man. Managing Elvis's money was a full-time job. He bragged to Nashville reporters that he would make just as much money with Elvis gone. With a new movie, and I'll give him credit, he planned that right, because, based upon what this book is saying, he planned the whole thing with Elvis going in the Army. He worked all the details out to get him in there. And, of course, in order to do that, he would have to make arrangements to make sure that Elvis stayed relevant during those 2 years. With a new movie coming out and continuing record sales, Elvis didn't have to worry about the going dry, and neither did he. Serving in the Army was pretty much a 9-to-5 job for Elvis, who put in his time at the base. He earned an marksman rating with a .30 caliber carbine, but at the end of the day, he went home to Vernon and Gladys and lived much as he had in Memphis. So there in Texas at the time, I mean, even when he got to Germany, it wasn't like 24/7. You know.
Mm-mm.
By June, Elvis had completed the basic training and was eligible for a 14-day furlough. He returned to Memphis with his parents and then went to Nashville, where the colonel had arranged for a recording session. For the first time since they had started it together in Sam Phillips, Elvis had Scotty and Bill were not invited to the session, and that's when he started cutting them out. Scotty and Bill were stung by the slight. They both needed the money. Since January, Scotty's only income for the year had come from his work on the King Creole soundtrack, and that amounted to only a little over $2,000.
Wow.
Wow.
What a slap in the face.
He knew he was close with Scotty and somewhat to Bill, but Colonel is the one that really. Bill was a little more hot-headed, and Bill was done with. Bill had. I don't think. Well, Scotty or Bill didn't like Parker from the day they met him. It's been made clear. It's been told in Scotty's book and many other books.
But it's something, getting back to something we said last week too. And it just goes to show Scotty's character. Is he knew it wasn't Elvis, because if you watch them in the 68 special, you see that fire coming back. You see that fire that the two of them shared together as
Well, the eye
musicians.
contact. Yeah, the eye contact they made with each other, and the little joke about the line in Lottie Miss Claudie.
Yeah.
They eyed each other, and he was teasing around with Scotty about that line, and Elvis would say the line. And even with DJ there, it just felt almost like, of course, Bill Black had passed away. I'd be curious to know if Bill Black might have shown up. I don't know. It would have been interesting. It would have been kind of cool to have the original three. Does anyone know if Scotty and Bill ever visited him at Graceland? I know Scotty had gone to Graceland.
Yeah, Scotty did.
I don't know if Bill ever did. I mean, they didn't live far from from each other. Until Scotty died, he lived right there in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great website, still up and running. Really, a lot of good information.
Wow.
ScottyMoore.net, I think it is. It's really good. I've got a lot of good information up there, but it's still running. So I don't know who in his family's got it running, or who's got it, but it's a good one. On the day after Vernon and Gladys returned to Memphis, she was admitted to a hospital with an advanced case of hepatitis. The doctor saw that it was serious and called Elvis and told him he needed to come home. At first, his request for leave was turned down, and Elvis called the hospital every hour to get an update on his mother. He said that if his leave did not come through, though, soon he would leave anyway. After hearing that Elvis was talking about going AWOL, Gladys' physician called the commanding officer and pleaded with him to release Elvis. And of course, we know he did. When he got to Memphis, he went straight to the hospital, where he found his mother looking better than he had expected. After visiting several hours, he left Vernon at the hospital and went to Graceland to spend the night. The next morning, he returned to the hospital and stayed several hours. On the third day, he received an early morning telephone call at Graceland, informing him that his mother had passed away. That's always a sad part to read. We covered this.
Yeah.
We started this with Careless Love when we started that book a couple of weeks ago. Starts off with this period of time. Yeah, I know that Scotty visited Graceland, but Bill Black. I don't know. I think by the time that he bought that place, I think Bill Black. It was just before they were already cutting Bill out. When he got word of Glass's death, Parker rushed over from Nashville and took charge of the funeral preparations.
There we go.
Wrong step there. Elvis wanted to have the funeral at Graceland, but Parker, why would he be managing this? But Parker
Hmm.
overruled him on that and insisted that it be held in a chapel. More than 400 people packed into the tiny chapel to hear the services, and more than 6,000 mourners filed past to view the casket. Outside the chapel, 65 police officers were assigned to provide crowd control. And how much do you think that was all Parker for the news? Like we talked about just a little bit ago about that whole scene of him on the front steps. That was Parker's doing for photographers.
Yeah, I get. Actually, you just read it now because as you were reading it, I was thinking about it. The only reason why he pushed for that was a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
And yet again, it sickens me that he would exploit Elvis to that extent.
Hmm.
To say no, that, you know, the person your entire world revolves around is no longer here, but let's make it look good for business for my benefit. Screw
Right.
you and what you want,
Right.
but let's make, you know, it's, and no, that guy just rubs me up the wrong way completely. And it's like every time, the more we get into this guy, the more I look at myself and go, you know, I don't, as much as it pains me to admit the truth, yes, he did certain things in Elvis's career that were beneficial for the times, and I can see the logic behind that. But overall, as a person, just a just a parasite, I tell you.
The
And
fi-
Elvis must have known it silently all along. You know, uh, I
I
think also.
I th- I think you're right. And that at the beginning, I think
No.
it was right about this time period that people were probably putting thoughts into his head about Parker.
Yeah.
Scotty would have been the prime one right there.
And that's
Of
possibly
course,
why
Travis.
the Colonel worked Bill and Scotty out of the picture, because the Colonel was very clever with that kind of thing.
Yeah, he was jealous of him.
And he knew, and I mean, we all know that his mother his mother said straight out that she believed that Parker was the devil incarnate. So, you know,
Yeah,
but
like Tracy says there, never let a tragedy go to waste.
no,
It's
and
always
that's
bad. Bad news is always better. Is always more profitable than good news.
yeah. But we do know for sure that by the time the '68 special came around, Elvis knew exactly what was cooking on what side of the stove.
The final weeks at Fort Hood before Elvis's departure overseas were a blur to all who were involved. The anguish that had been building all year among his family and friends was kicked into overdrive with the death of his mother. The colonel visited Elvis at his rented home in Kylene several times to talk to him about future releases from RCA, but he stayed no longer than what was necessary. Parker really had work to do at his garage office in Madison. He had been telling reporters for the last year or two that he had a staff of 20 or 30 people in his office to handle all the letters coming in. And that was a lie, but now, with Elvis leaving the country, the tiny office was being inundated with cards and letters. And how many of those things really got ever, you know, answered? Any of them? I mean, with as many as he got, I find unless he got a whole staff of people doing it, and he may have to reply. I mean, that he was getting slew of. They probably had an 18-wheeler that had to back stuff up.
Ugh, just makes my stomach churn, really sad.
Yeah. All right. Why am I not getting movement here?
But those people will do that to you. Narcissists will do that to you.
Yeah. All right. See where we're at. Okay.
Yeah, they did. They did, Kathleen. I heard stories. I mean, you go back on you go back on YouTube, you look at some of the footage there, you see the guys there, vendors there selling T-shirts and cups and newspaper clippings and candles and all those crazy
Oh yeah.
stuff. I, Colonel definitely had his finger in there somehow.
Yeah, there's no
If
doubt about it.
if not directly, most definitely indirectly.
Every opportunity he's put Elvis out there, no matter what it may be, and now you're down to the lowest you could be. No privacy to have a photo shoot of him and his father on the front steps of Graceland
Yeah,
that should have been never taken.
no, no,
And I think it's different with Elvis, but I think the funeral for Gladys should have been 100% pure, just family.
yeah,
And the fact that Parker felt like he should take over and handle it, you want a carny to handle your mother? Sorry, guys, I got my. I'm sitting here going, a carny to handle your. There's people that are hired to do that at the funeral homes. There's people that handle all that stuff. It's not like Elvis couldn't afford it.
yeah. I mean, Elvis would have had the fans that would have congregated out of respect for him and his mama, and he knew that. But I agree with you. The fact that the colonel took over and turned it all into a carnival. If I were Elvis, I would. But then again, he knew Elvis wasn't strong enough to fight him on that at that point, and he
Yeah,
knew it.
that's a good
He
point,
took
Tracy.
it.
Yep. Yeah,
He
Parker.
took advantage of it.
Yeah, he did, and he did it after Elvis's death. He signed a new march. Was it before? Was it before or after his death?
Just after.
Just after. Yeah, he started with Vernon, didn't he?
Yeah, he went to Vernon actually the day after
Yeah,
on the
and
on the
Vernon signed it.
17th. On the 17th, he went to see Vernon at Graceland because Charlie testified to that. Charlie was there. Jerry's testified to that because Jerry was there sitting at the table. And he did. He said Connor walked in there with a new contract, and they both said that Vernon was beside himself.
At
He
a
didn't
time
know
of
whether.
weakness. At a time of weakness.
Yeah, they said he didn't know whether he was coming or going, and Parker said, "Oh no, just sign this for me. This will put me in a position to handle everything for you. You won't have to worry about anything." And
And I'm sure one of the thoughts that went through Vernon's head, and not that this would be a negative, is, you know, what's he going to do?
yeah,
Vernon, Elvis supported him, and Vernon. I'm sure what went through Vernon's head is, what am I going to do about the house? What am I going to do about all this? I may not have happened at that precise moment, but I think I can imagine and feel very comfortable to make this remark is that's the words that came out of Parker's mouth. You need to have some kind of income coming in, and we need to do this agreement now because you no longer have income coming in. You've got this
yeah,
house, you've got all this, and if we don't do this agreement, you're going to lose everything.
yeah. I mean, we all know that at the time of his passing, he had just over a million in in uh, in capital. That's not even to say that he had a million in the bank, but he was worth a million in combined assets. So I mean, and we all know that Grayson costs a fortune to run
Yeah,
every
Parker had
every
Vernon's ear.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, Cam. And Parker had Vernon's ear. Parker
Oh yeah.
Parker Parker was Vernon's monkey on a leash, for a lack of a better term. He was, I don't know what the proper term. I don't know why I went to a monkey. We've covered every animal in the zoo on this book, but yeah, Parker. And once again, I get back to, Vernon. I know that Elvis loved his father, and of course Vernon loved Elvis, and that relationship was, I don't know to this day really what the final feeling Elvis had. I'm sure near the end, Elvis, especially when he brings him up on stage at the end, and you could tell Elvis's heart was for his father because he'd been sick, and it was so meaningful what he said. He's glad to have him back on tour with him. But Vernon and Parker had him. Parker had, and and that's, but then that was in the snake in the grass, and that might have been the light's too light. That might have been the straw that started to break the camel's back, is when that all came out, and then they started doing the investigation, and and Parker,
Yeah.
and now we're still to this day dealing with that lawsuit, because there are a lot of that memorabilia and stuff that was supposed to go to Graceland that there's a question as to why they don't have it. And, there's stuff that's supposed to be going up on auction that was supposed to be part of what was to go to Graceland, to the family. And so I know I got to read up more on that lawsuit. There's the lawsuit between Priscilla and this Bridget Cruz, who runs the auction site, and then this one with involving Greg McDonald and memorabilia that has been getting sold off. I need to read it. If anybody knows what's going on with that, put it in the comments.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Susan. I think I agree with you in a certain sense, but I'm going to be devil's advocate here in a sense too, that uh, I think the sad thing is that we all know Vernon was not stupid, but unfortunately, in a lot of senses, Elvis stepped into the same hole too, and the colonel knew that, because uh, had they been given all the information that was available,
I
and
agree.
had they been given all the information truthfully, they most definitely would have made different decisions. But the colonel knew that the only way he could manipulate them into doing what he wanted them to do was to give them half truths. And I mean, it's human nature. We can only make decisions based on what we know. And unfortunately, in Elvis's case, uh, also, but in Vernon's case, even more so, that Parker only gave him what he felt he needed to know, and what he felt he would elicit a certain kind of decision or a certain kind of direction. Uh, Parker would only give him half of the eggs in the basket, instead of, had he given him the complete truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
uh, both Vernon and Elvis would have definitely made better decisions with regard to a lot of things, and the colonel knew that. So that was just another manipulation tactic on
Yeah,
his part.
we got another little other topic here that's really interesting. I agree with what's being said here. Priscilla and Colonel, I think they had a good relationship between each other, and it was all about money. And Priscilla saw an opportunity to make money by having her friendship with Colonel. She did not want to be on the bad side of Colonel, for sure, because the Colonel could have really done some damage to Priscilla.
Oh yeah, no, she knew he had the whip in hand. She
Yeah,
knew
so
he
she had,
was.
so she, it's it's Priscilla. I can't wait till the book comes out. Read it. It's gonna be. I'm not gonna believe half the shit I know. I don't find it gonna be a reliable book, but it's gonna be. That is gonna be an interesting chat that day, and that might be a day that we don't do the inside the studio as early. We hold it off a little bit later, because that's gonna be a chat in of itself, or we do it
Yeah,
in two shows, because that's a volatile subject right there, and I've always avoided it. But I think right now, with everything coming out, my goal with all with these chats with the subject of the Colonel and the subject of Priscilla is, I'm going to finish off the Colonel. That doesn't sound right. I'm going to finish off the subject of the Colonel after Goranek's book. We're going to cover that. We're going to compare what we've gone through with the books, and it may take 3-4 chats, because that's a big book, but we're going to cover that book. then once that's done, it's going to be just a topic that comes up every once in a while in other books that we read. Same thing with Priscilla. When her book comes out in September, we're going to do a couple chats on that, and I'm wiping my slate clean of any major main topic of Priscilla or the Colonel. Like I said, they'll come up again in other conversations, but I don't. I'll be done with them. I think we will have covered as much as we possibly can. We have when you talk about the fact that you have to have an image of your image in your mind of the Colonel turning his head left and coughing is enough for me, and I don't mean
Yeah.
that, and I don't even mean that as to be funny. It's just an image I really don't care to see. But it just really, all this stuff is really putting into perspective what groomed Parker to be what he is, what he's become. And then after Gronik's book, I think it's going to be, and I've said this before, Gronik's book's not going to be, well, not, I don't, is there everything in it going to be 100% fact? No.
Objectively, no.
Objectively, no. Is it going to be a true effort, a true, what's the word I'm saying? I feel that Peter Gronik is the best biographer of Elvis. And I feel that what he will do with the Colonel, good, bad, or ugly, will be the best information he's been able to gather in 30 freaking years on the Colonel with documents and things that nobody's ever seen. You know, he got the archives, some of the archives from the Colonel's stash, letters and all that. I think that's going to answer a lot of questions. Are we going to get every question answered? Nah, that'll never happen. We won't ever have every question about Priscilla and all that. But I tell you what, I think we'll have a pretty good perception of both of them. And I don't think either one of them is going to come out winners in this, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. My idea with regard to that is that their relationship, Priscilla and the Colonel's relationship, was a case of you scratch my back, I
Yeah.
scratch yours.
Well, he's the one that got her. Yeah, like Tracy says, I
Yeah.
feel strongly that Parker was the one instrumental in getting that to happen.
Mm.
You know, and I think that goes along the line of, I don't know. You know, it's just I want to agree with Tracy, but then in another aspect, is it a wise career move when your main fan are females, and then all of a sudden you're getting married and you're not. Oh, of course,
Well, if you look at it from this perspective, right? Uh, the age-old adage, uh, you know, when does a person want something or someone the worst? When they no longer available.
yeah. No, you know what? That's a good point.
So, put the narrative out there that Elvis is now technically off the market, creates the hype even more because now it's a case of like forbidden fruit kind of thing. And that just hypes the marketing van up even more. I
Yeah,
mean, and we all know the powers of manipulation that the Colonel had over Elvis.
right.
So, had the Colonel been pushing it into Elvis's ears all the time, we don't know that, you know, the Colonel was possibly the one pushing it into Elvis's head that no, Priscilla needs to come back over here to the States and blah blah blah, and he needs to speak to her parents about ABC XYZ. We all know that the Colonel had that power over Elvis, and although it might have been Elvis that spoke to her parents about it and organized the whole thing and got the whole thing to happen, we don't really know who was really driving the bus behind the scenes. Was it truly Elvis's intention, or was it the Colonel's intention working through Elvis?
Yeah, you know, see, Cat, yeah, you're touching base on what I talked about earlier. I think, I think that when Parker died, the ones that have, I think they were, or maybe Parker gave it to him just before he died. But I think what was that lawsuit over are things that they took or were given that should have never been given to him before, before or after he died, and that's what the lawsuit's about. Yeah, yeah. Susan, Veronica admires Elvis, but I don't agree with all his comments. I think he used too many other books instead of doing his own research. Well, the one thing I got to say about that is I agree with you on some aspects of it, Susan. But what I also think is at this point in time, that's all you have are books. Because a lot, other than research and legal documents and all that, because the majority of the people that are involved in this are dead and gone. So where else do you go for research other than reliable books that you've read? So I agree with you. There's a lot of things that he says in books that I've read in other books, but Alana Nash does that too. And but I think she expands upon it. So I'm with you on that, Susan. That he does use those, but I think at one aspect, if he'd written this book 30 years ago, I think he would have been better off. He would have not used as many books. He would have gone straight to the source. But the people that are involved in this whole story, who's the only one alive? Hello, Priscilla and Jerry Schilling. Everyone else is dead and gone. So the only resource you have are legal documents and books. And I think he would have gone. The book. Excuse me. The book will tell where he got his resources at the end. They always give a bibliography at the end of where the resources came from. So I kind of agree. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Susan, because I think a couple of weeks ago that comment came up, and I thought, yeah, no, you're right. Then after a while, after that chat that day, I got to thinking, where else could he have gone?
Yeah, if you think about it now that you mention him, Jerry, he's in a between a rock and a hard place because he he has an undying loyalty to Elvis and an undying loyalty to Lisa.
Yeah, and I
But
think, yeah, but he's got this relationship with Priscilla that it
yeah,
baffles me. It really baffles me. Now, I think Jerry Schilling's one of the type of guys that doesn't like confrontation. And I think
no,
that's one of the reasons why he left Elvis and went on his own was because he got tired of the bullshit that was going on with
all,
the other guys. And
all
he
the
didn't,
infighting.
all the infighting. And Jerry Schilling just strikes me as a guy that does not like that. He's just a laid back. I mean, that speech he gave at the eulogy for Lisa Marie was just, it had me tears because he talked about how she would he would call her Memphis and he would call her Joe Schilling. It's just great stories. You could tell he was eaten up alive. It was eating him up that she was gone because they had that good relationship. But sometimes I just wonder what is it that's keeping him to be as close as he is to Priscilla? Is it just the fact that he doesn't want any confrontation? He just keeps the peace and he's friends with her.
I think it might be twofold. I think it might to backtrack a little bit. Uh, I think I think Jerry, in many instances, saw Lisa as a daughter, and she saw Jerry as a father. So that dynamic too is a very a very special place to be. But I think at the same time, uh, he his involvement with Priscilla now is more of a show of respect for Lisa
Yeah,
than anything
I
else.
agree. Now, I have a question if anybody out there knows, and I may have heard this fact. So, Elvis Week, from my understanding, Jerry Phillips is going to be there. Peter Gronick's going to be there. Of course, the Smiths are going to be there. Has anybody heard whether Priscilla's going to be there? I don't think she is. I don't think she's welcome to. But somebody answer that for me if you know. After reading Jerry's book, I don't trust anything he says. Really? Hmm.
Do share with us, Tracy. It would
Yeah,
be
share with us,
interesting to
Tracy.
hear,
I'll have to
hear
read
your
that again.
perspective.
That'll be a good book to cover. Not a real long book. I enjoyed the book,
I
but
haven't read this book, to be
it's
honest.
been 50. It's been since it came out since I read it. But why? What is it about it, Tracy? That's a good. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Sea cat. I don't know, Kathleen. It's odd. It's odd. Someone leaves her family. There is some reason he left and cut contact with his family. What could it be? Was he accusing of something not necessarily okay, so now I guess I need to find the other part of the conversation.
No, they talking about the colonel and why he left the
Oh,
Netherlands. And,
yeah, his
the
mother was still alive when he died. So she supposedly she never saw him again. Now, I've got a book by I read a book. There's a couple of Colonel books by Todd Slaughter who talks highly of Colonel Parker. He had some involvement with him. And they're actually pretty interesting books. But there's one conversation that says, or one thing that was brought out, and I'd be interested to know if Peter touches on this. I know it takes me a while to get to a point. Supposedly, when Parker got here and started earning money, he sent money home.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'd be interesting to know. I can't remember what book. I think it's in one of Todd Slaughter's books. But that's an interesting thought. Did he? Now they in that one that we saw, those two ones that Renee sent us, they were like they never heard from him again. They don't know what happened to him until they.
Hmm.
But supposedly his brother went out and met Elvis, and they got together. And Colonel said that we're going off in another rabbit hole. We got so many rabbit holes here that they're breeding like dozens at a time. Oh God, exactly, Susan. Especially with Jerry being with Lisa at the award show. Then Zerp from Jerry, he went ghost.
Yeah, they talking about why Jerry never defended Lisa's book. You know,
Yeah, I think that goes
yeah,
along.
that's
I think that goes along with what I'm saying. I think he just doesn't want any kind of confrontation. He just keeps his mouth shut. He doesn't voice his opinion on stuff. He just tells stories. I mean, that's my opinion. I just from what I hear, I've never really heard him talk negative about anything.
I think
Compromise is a
August.
good word. Yeah.
I think August, Susan. This is a classic case of, uh, as I understand it, this a classic case of neither confirm nor deny. It's the safest spot for Jerry to be, because had he stood up and defended Lisa's book, he would have got a shitload of heat from Priscilla's camp, and vice versa. And
Yeah, I just wonder
this,
how much, what, what kind of financial collaboration they have.
yes,
I
and
think I think they do productions together for Elvis Day because you see when you see a production by Priscilla, a lot of times you see in there as a consultant Jerry Phillips
yeah,
or as an
Jerry Schilling.
associate producer or something like that. So maybe somewhere along the line, because I don't know how much management Park Phillips is still doing of bands. I don't know.
This kind of ties into your point, and if that's the case, uh, I agree with Rick in saying that Jerry doesn't want to have the heat. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Either way, neither confirm nor deny. And to bring in your point, Susan, I think if that's the case, if he's living as I'm speculating, I don't think he's going to do anything, because
I would love for somebody to ask Jerry at Elvis Week if he has a chance to get questions from the audience to ask him what his opinion was of Lisa's book.
yeah. But then are we going to get the real answer? Are
That's
we going to
I
get
don't know.
oh
That's what I'm saying. I would be curious to see what his response would be.
I
That's
I
I agree with you. I don't think we're gonna. I think what we're gonna get is
we're
a
going to get the
runaround
PR.
answer. Oh,
Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna get the PR, the public relations answer,
yeah.
because Priscilla's out there and she's listening. But you're right. I would love to know his true feelings, behind closed doors, sit down with him
It'll
man to
never,
man.
it'll never happen.
It'll never,
That's the
it'll
one thing
never
about Jerry. He's never when you talk about all the Memphis Mafia. There's only two. All those were close to Elvis, two that died with no controversy. You can disagree with his book, and I'm going to reread the book because I'd be interested to know. I'd be interested to know what it is that Tracy, disagrees with the book, and because I love hearing other people's opinions because I'll look at it with open eyes. But at the end of the day, when you talk about the Memphis Mafia, what are the names that always pop up when you think of the negative stuff? You never hear Charlie, you never hear Jerry. All you hear is Red, Sonny, Lamar Fark. Oh my fuck, I can't.
From Fortin Jarvis to Lamar Fort.
Holy crap! I haven't even eaten beans today. So you hear, Lamar Fike. You hear about Marty Lacker. There's always some Billy Smith, Danny Smith. You always hear negative stuff about them. But with Jerry, it's there's disagreements about some things he says in the book. God, I'm probably gonna freaking read that book tonight now after we
Yeah,
do our live chat. I'm curious now. Wine Shock or
Tra- Tracy, I agree with you. Sorry, I agree with you.
I like that.
Uh, I agree with you, Tracy. She might not have direct ties to EPE, but we do know that she has ties to Riley, and we do know that she exercises her manipulative power over Riley.
Yeah,
So she might not have direct ties to EPE, but she has direct ties to Riley, and she knows how to play Riley.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Un-
Yeah,
unfor- unfortunately, using the excuse of saying Priscilla doesn't have any contact with EPE anymore, that don't matter. She knows exactly how to get Riley to dance, and she's proven it with the whole
well,
burial thing at Graceland.
I think and this is just an opinion. I see nothing for it.
Yeah, these are all
But the
skeptical.
biggest,
These are all my opinions.
but no, but I agree with what you're saying. I think I think she's really trying to dig in and get a hold of Riley in a very manipulative way. But just watching Riley and how she handles herself with a lot of things, and I think that whole deal where I think she settled because she just got tired of the whole deal of the whole lawsuit. She wanted her hands clean of it.
Yeah,
Maybe she thought it'll never happen. I'll grant that. I know that there's a zoning issue. I don't know if it was ever corrected that she can't be buried in the. They were only allowed six bodies, and that was
six
all.
blocks.
That's all it was zoned for. But I don't know. Hopefully, I outlive Priscilla. But my opinion is if she's going to be buried at Grayson, I've said this before. I think should be buried out near the barn, near the manure pile. That's all I care. But at the end of the day, I think Riley is she is so protective of her career, and she's so protective of how she handles herself. I don't think she will allow Priscilla to ruin that for her.
No.
And she will stand up at the end of the day, stand up and face Priscilla and say, "Enough, I'm done with it."
Yeah, Olga has another good point too, and it ties into your point. So I
Hell,
think Riley, I think Riley possibly saw this and realized that, hey, all due respect, Grandma's gonna milk this till the cows come home unless I put a stop to this. And we all know she has that. Those kind of tendencies. So we never know. Maybe Riley looked at it from a business perspective too. Had people saying to her that you're gonna have to throw in the towel with us,
yeah.
otherwise she's just gonna keep costing us money.
Yeah, that's a good point, Susan. And I'm going to be curious. My guess is Riley's just going to brush it off and just. I don't think she's going to want to get into that controversy, but she may. But I would love to hear her comment if there's contradictions in the book. I think yeah, that's a
I,
good point.
I, I
I don't
think
know. I don't know how to
publicly,
answer that.
I think publicly she'll plead the fifth, but privately, I think she
Yeah.
does have very strong beliefs and opinions about it. And like Rick says, I think those are the kind of beliefs and opinions that we'll never be privy to, never ever.
As long as that
As long as she's around,
as long as Riley owns, or her and his sisters, and it passes down, through that family line, and maintains the ownership of Graceland and all the actual property that she owns. She owns all the physical stuff at Graceland and the property. She owns all those jumpsuits. She owns all that stuff, with the exception of the stuff that people have leased there. And that's people. Oh, I'm going to throw this out to a lot of people. It's kind of going off on the side. We're
I
running.
love these chats when they go like this, man.
Yeah, I do too. So here's my thought that I just forgot. Oh no. So we're talking about all the belongings, everything at Graceland. Riley owns all that, all the physical property, and the majority of everything. The other stuff that she doesn't own are the things that are leased by people who have bought memorabilia. For example, the Aloha cape. That's not owned by Graceland. That's owned by some. Whether he may have given it to him, I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But when I hear when they do auctions of Elvis memorabilia that's out there for sale, people are like, "Why doesn't Graceland just buy this out? Why doesn't EPA, buy this?" Well, here's the business side of that. It's wise on both parties. The person that buys it and EPE. First of all, EPE doesn't have to pay a fortune for the cape or whatever they're selling. The guy buys it for the fortune, but he leases it to EPE and he gets his money back through leasing
Yeah,
it. And EPE gets their money through the people coming to go. So everybody wins. The fans win
so
because they get to see it. Now, that doesn't happen with everything, but if I bought something like a jumpsuit or something really close to Elvis's, person, I would definitely lease it to Grayson because first of all, I know it's going to be guarded and protected,
creates recurring income, static
and I've
recurring
got
income.
a income coming in off of and it give me all my money back plus.
Take, takes no effort from you. You can sit on your ass literally, and it earns money for you.
Yeah, that's a that's a good comment, Tracy. How cool is it that Tupelo, Riley's
Yeah,
daughter, will be part owner of Grace? That's a good thought. I never really thought about that.
that just goes to show that Riley understands the importance of her grandpa and his legacy, and also it for me it's it just shows how awesome it is because she's not doing it for us. She's by doing that she's honoring her mother, which goes to show that she understands how important that all, I'm going to say, is, because it will always be part of Lisa and where she came from. uh she realizes she has the foresight to know that if she does it any other way, eventually, like Eric says, the sharks are going to close in. And in a certain in a certain sense, I agree with Eric that yeah, the sharks are circling Riley, but she has a couple of very sharp spears in her backpack that she hasn't even brought out yet.
You know that.
They think Lisa was a difficult fish to fry.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I can tell you something, that there were a couple of conversations for Riley growing up that she knew her mother in and out, and her
I
mother
tell you what,
told her
Lisa
exactly
was
what.
a good mother.
Yeah,
Now on the subject of Riley, real quick, I've seen a lot of comments where people take an interview that Riley has had, and she'll call him Elvis instead of her grandfather, and they're saying, yeah, she doesn't really feel that close to Elvis. Well, I've got an interview, and I wish I could find it, but I'll find it before we do the live feed tonight, live watch party. It's her talking about, and she keeps calling him her grandfather, and she shows exactly how she feels about who he was, who he is, and you could tell. But what she's saying, that she knows that really about her heritage. She knows that it's special, and it's a really good comment. I'll find it, and I don't know. Maybe I'll save it for next week, or we'll do it. Let's just say this wasn't even the top. We were supposed to be on the Colonel, but anyway, it doesn't make any difference. We talk whatever we want to talk. I got to
This
wind
is
this
a,
down.
this is zip and pippin, man. It always comes back to the start.
Yeah, so we got the inside the studio starting in 30 minutes, so I don't want to go any longer than another 20 because I need to pop me some popcorn. No, so I will find that video on Riley, and we'll play it next book chat, or maybe I'll play it on the live feed Sunday, and then because it's really good, and then hell, we'll continue on with the Colonel book next week. Now tonight, I've got a great series. Oh, I want to say thank you to everybody that helped me out with the Discord. I said this earlier with the Discord trial. I'm going to be doing that more with documentaries and all that, and all kinds of things that I cannot play on YouTube, like the TV series. I'm going to do that first. We're going to do a kind of a semi binge watch of 3 episodes at a time, and then I got so much stuff. So today, at the watch party tonight, let me share this with everybody. So today's watch party is at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 Central, 3 Mountain, 2 Pacific.
You
Ooh,
made a
okay, I got a
you
phone.
made you made a mistake on the SA time. You confused the shit out of me.
No. Hey, Olga.
Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, Rick, Cam, and hey, everyone.
Hey. So, Cam. So, what do you think about our conversation today?
Yeah, you have a good conversation and great phone calls and everything.
Yeah, this has been exciting. I'm thrilled about it. We got a lot of input from just about everybody. I think that's been
Yeah,
watching. You know,
yeah.
and I'm excited. I think get Priscilla and Dylan, and of course you calling in,
Well,
and
I know Priscilla, everything she was saying, I was listening to her. I said, man, Colonel Parker he just turns the heat up on us, doesn't he?
oh yeah. These some of the stuff we read, I feel bad
Hi,
laughing at
Priscilla.
some things, but some things I gotta laugh because it's almost like karma. When
It
I
is.
read that part about elevator keep beating them up, I just like, what karma? Was Elvis the pushing the button? Was the ghost of Elvis pushing that button over and over?
I know, right?
It's like, but like Cam says, I absolutely love these conversations. You
I know
know,
it. We go off on so many different subjects, but it's because we all have different points of views, or some people might have information that we don't know.
yeah,
So Oh, by the way, hi Priscilla and hi Kathleen, hi Tracy
yeah,
and C-Cat. Because
yeah,
the girls always say hi when I'm talking to you, and I can't respond because I've got you on the TV
yeah.
and chatting with you on my phone.
Yeah, this is I love it. We've maintained a nice viewership that it gets a little bit higher. I mentioned earlier that our subscriber base is really jumping, and I've gained 833 new subscribers in the last 28 days, and that's just
Wow, Rick, you're
I
growing.
I know we're gonna hit 25,000 here probably
That's
within the
awesome.
next 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm gonna do some giveaways and stuff like that, so it's gonna be fun. I'm pushing.
Yeah,
Next one will be 50
yeah.
thousand. So, but yeah, I mean, you guys, like I say it over and over again. There's no drama here.
No,
Eh,
No, but you know how we were all just talking about Riley there for a second ago,
yeah,
and and I've seen people say, well, she doesn't refer to Elvis as her grandfather and this that. Well, I think sometimes when she's dealing with the public,
yeah,
uh,
Yeah.
she's looking at it in a diplomatic kind of way, in a business kind of way,
right.
and it
Yes.
doesn't bother me because I have seen her, and I think she was at an MTV thing where she said something about my grandfather. I caught a glimpse of
Yeah,
that one night, and
yeah,
she had said something about that in reference to him that way. But in a way, by her not saying it, maybe she wants to keep that to herself.
Yes.
Maybe when Lisa was alive and when they were young, they referred to him as their grandfather.
yeah,
Maybe those are private moments.
yeah.
She doesn't have to share that with us.
No.
You
Yeah,
know?
you guys will like that video I have of the interview. I downloaded it and I
Oh,
watched
good.
it and I
Yeah.
thought this is really good. I got to share this.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Riley. I do. And
Yeah,
I feel for her. I do. I know she's got to be put in such a tough position, to handle
yeah,
everything and raise
yeah.
her family and do her career.
Honor
I
her
mean,
mother and then also try to hold some kind of decent relationship with Priscilla and she's stuck between a rock and a hard place on some
she
issues,
is.
but
She
I
is.
think she handles it beautifully. So
And well done to her for picking up that ball because
yeah,
it's a hard
You
place to
know.
be. I don't, and I think Lisa knew that too. There's nobody else could have done it the way Riley's doing
Yeah.
it.
right.
Yeah, and there was an interview too that Lisa did with Lisa and Riley, and I don't remember the exact words, but Lisa said something to the effect that Riley is on board. She knows what time of day it is when it comes to this stuff,
Yeah,
and she's probably a lot more. Where Lisa's verbally, I think she wore her feelings on her sleeve. She just come out and say it. Where Riley's going
Yeah.
to stop and think about it and
yeah.
look at all the angles. You know what I mean?
And then she does it by action.
She does,
Yeah.
yeah.
She
And
takes action and she's got this. That's my decision. I mean, if you don't like it, she doesn't say
yeah,
that, but it's like that's the
yeah.
decision. Let's move on. It's
Yeah,
over. There's nothing you
but
can do
she
about
kind
it.
of looks at everything, Rick. She doesn't just come out and just rip something out of her mouth
Right.
because she's, oh my God, this might affect this person. This could do this, or come back and bite me in the ass. You
Well,
know what I mean?
well, she's got
Like,
great parents between
yeah,
Lisa and then Keo, Danny.
yeah,
Danny.
yeah,
You could. I mean, you could tell Danny's a loving father, and he did his great job of raising her too.
yeah. And but I'm kind of iffy with him because with all this, with Lisa passing and Ben going, he's been awfully quiet, and that's where I kind of like, is he
That's a good
just
point.
well, and then the Scientology thing, his parents were part of the builders of
Oh,
that.
is he still part of?
And
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
yes, yes. Danny's parents were
Ooh,
like big part of the schools and stuff. And I'm like, how deep does that run into the family? Is that why he just kind of sits back because
I did
of
not know
that?
that. See,
The
I learned
drama? I
something
mean,
new
just
every
like,
time. Wow.
exactly, exactly. And I'm not into that Scientology mess.
No,
I think
no,
that that was not a good thing for Lisa, and shame on
no.
her mother for doing that to her. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that's
I know
totally
Elvis
against
had
what
no respect
Elvis
for
would
them
have
at all.
done.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
But anyways, you've
Yeah.
had a great show.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Eric. Hi, Tracy Heenan. Hi, everybody. I'm looking at the names.
Yeah,
Well, say
Eric.
hi to
Eric
everybody.
says you got a pleasant voice.
Oh, well, thank you, Eric.
Riley's very
Some
intelligent
days
and
I
cautious.
curse a little bit. Sometimes I curse, but today I'm not going to.
Yeah, I haven't done much cursing today.
Yeah.
I've,
Okay, Rick. I just
well,
wanted to
thank
phone
you,
in and
dear. I
say great
appreciate it.
show, great
Yeah.
points. I'm probably going to watch this on replay because I've missed a little bit, been going
Okay.
in and out, but
All
good
right. Well,
show.
yeah, we're getting ready to start our insight here in a little bit, and then we got tonight. I was just getting ready to bring up that at 5 o'clock for the watch party. There's a 16-part series that came out on the 25th anniversary. It's called the Definitive Collection, and tonight we're starting off with Volume 1, the Memphis Years. So it's a
Okay.
really good collection. So it should be a pretty good series. It's been a year since I watched it all. So there's 16 different volumes on it. Eight. It was an
Oh,
eight.
wow.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do it all in a row. I'll just throw it in there every once in a while so we can kind of mix it up.
Oh, you bust my
I may
nuts.
have
I was going.
to make
I
it
was.
5 p.m. tonight, Rick.
What's that?
I might not be able to make your
Oh,
5 p.m.
okay.
show because tonight's my last night of vacation, and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to spend some time with my brother
No, do
and my
it. Yeah,
sister-in-law
that's
and my
okay.
nieces and nephews, and I'll probably have to watch it on replay.
Well, you take you got the time off, and that's the perfect time. I prefer
Yeah.
people spend time with their family. They can always
Oh yeah,
watch this.
yeah.
You
I'm
can't.
already at a disconnect because of working night shift and 6 days a week. I miss a lot of the family. So, and I've really spent a lot of time with a lot of people this week, which makes me feel good. I kind of catch
Yeah,
up on things.
yeah. No, I can appreciate that. So, well,
All
thank
right,
you
hon.
for calling in. Kathleen says thanks for calling in. She enjoys your
Oh, you're
conversation.
welcome, Kathleen.
All
Well,
right.
everybody have a great Saturday.
Yeah,
Have
you
fun
too.
doing what you're doing, and adios.
Okay, bye bye. All right,
Oh,
guys. So that's what we got
you
going today.
you bust my bubble. I was going to tell the guys we in for a 16-hour marathon. We're going to watch from episode 1 to episode 16, but you bust my bubble before I even had a chance to blow it.
Yeah, Tracy says, what could be better than an all Elvis Saturday night hanging with the like minded people? So true.
So true.
Susan says, I cannot tell you guys, we're getting 10 on time. I cannot tell you all how much Cam and I talk about this week can't get fast enough. All the things that we do on a regular schedule, we look so forward to it. It's just, look what happened today. We started with the Colonel, and look where we're at now. Riley, and it's great. So hopefully you all can join us in the chat in 20 minutes for the premiere of our next Inside the Studio. Some great stuff. I'll be there. Suspicious Minds.
This
Cry
going to be a banger, guys. This was a good one.
and Crying in the Chapel. We'll hear it studio, and we're going to hear it a cappella, and it will send chills. All right, guys. And then hopefully we'll see you at 5. We got our live stream tomorrow. Everybody knows about. I'll send out a notice. If you're not part of Discord or WhatsApp, I'll have the links down in the description of this by the end of the day, and join us because we're going to start doing those watch parties on Discord where we can play things like the 68 special. I could play that whole thing all the way through. I could play all the outtakes. Oh, there's so much shit I can do. All right, guys. Have a great one. See, Cat. Yes, Tracy, and I'm off today. Awesome. All right, guys. See you. Hopefully, see you in about 20 minutes. If not, we'll see you real soon. Thanks. We love all of you. Great team, and thank you for all your support. Let me get rid of this so I can see. There we go. We'll go here. I gotta add just so. There we go. What the heck is that? Remove it. All right. Y'all have a great evening, and we will see you real soon. Adios.
Thank you, guys. Hey, hey, hey!